What's up guys, Chaos Shinobi here. This is What If Naruto Has a Mystery Bloodline. Summary: Naruto hides a lot of secrets from his classmates. Will they ever find out what they are? And what? Naruto has a bloodline. Genius. Anbu. New bloodline. Naruto. Chapter 1. A group of four masked figures stood in front of the Hokage. The shortest of the four wrapped his arm around the tallest of the four in what could only be concern. But, they can't do that, Hokage-sama. We were doing what was asked of us. So why are you sending only Crow-san away when all of us committed the act? Why not mark us all as criminals so Crow isn't by himself out there? He's going to be hunted by other villagers and... The panther-masked Anbu was cut off when Crow grabbed his shoulder, gently. Panther, Naruto, listen to me. Crow began, I need you, and the others to stay here all right. Tiger and Raven are needed to spy on Danzo and you, Naruto, I need you to watch over Sasuke all right. Make sure he doesn't do anything too foolish. Crow wrapped his arms around the smaller male. Don't worry about me. I'm going to be joining an unknown organization who is recruiting strong missing nins for some reason, so I'm going to meet up with them and see what they're up to, so I won't be out in the open. Naruto lowered his head and returned the hug. Please stay safe, Itachi. And I'll do my very best to look over Sasuke, but if he turns out to be as bad as the rest of your clan, I'm afraid there won't be much I can do for him, Itachi. The blonde whispered. Nodding his head, Itachi pulled away. Not much you can do about that, right? If the worst comes to be, then do whatever it is that you must to ensure that Konoha remains safe, alright. Naruto nodded his head, a frown tilting his lips. Itachi removed his mask and placed it on the Sandaimi's desk before facing Naruto and lifting his mask. I'll see you later, Naruto-kun, he whispered, poking the boy's forehead. Take care of yourself. Turning, Itachi looked over at the Tiger and Raven masked Anbus. And that goes for you too, Shin, Sai. I want you to watch your backs while dealing with Danzo. The two boys removed their masks and nodded towards their captain and friend. Of course, Itachi. Shin stated. Sai smiled, and we will look out for Naru-chan and protect him for you. Naruto turned and glared at Sai, who only smiled wider at the look he was getting from the blonde. What do you mean look out for me, Sai? I can take care of myself, you know. Itachi smiled and poked Naruto's forehead again, gaining his attention. Naruto pouted and rubbed forehead. I'm going to miss you, Ida. The boy whispered, I wish you didn't have to leave, especially alone. The blonde bit his bottom lip. I want you to write to me, Itachi. I want to know if you're safe. And if you ever need help, come to us. Blue eyes stared into the abyss. Promise? Itachi nodded. If I ever need help, I'll send for you, Sai and Shin, he whispered. I promise. Naruto nodded his head and watched as Itachi bowed towards the Hokage and disappeared from the office. A second later, Naruto fell to the ground sobbing. Sai and Shin dropped beside their young friend and hugged him, uttering words of comfort while the Sandaime closed his eyes and offered a silent apology to the four boys who this affected most, well besides Sasuke. Anyway, Naruto? The blonde nodded to show he was listening. You're the new captain of the team and a new recruit will be added. You'll be taking missions in the evening and in the morning you're going to be an undercover academy student to better watch over Uchiha Sasuke. Okay. Will this new recruit work well with us? And we're not going to replace Itachi with this person, whoever it is. The Hokage smiled and shook his head. I don't expect you to, Naruto. Team Elements is the best Anbu squad we ever had and it would be an insult to keep using that name, so with a new teammate comes a new name. Sai glanced towards the Hokage. Why do we need a new member? He or she will only get in the way of our team's dynamics. There is no such thing as a three-man team. There are solo missions, partner missions and a squad, meaning a team of four, a captain and three subordinates. The Hokage pointed out. As for your new member, I'll let you have your pick. The elder ruler grabbed a thick folder and placed it on the table. Those are the list of names and achievements, attacks and their specialties are. Naruto nodded and grabbed the folder. We'll look through this and tell you our pick in a week. The blonde whispered, wiping his eyes. Along with our new team name. That's fine. Sarutobi nodded his head. Naruto, I'm giving you an undercover mission. You're going to be attending the academy so you can better watch over Uchiha Sasuke and I want monthly updates about the boy. I want to know if he inherited his clan's known arrogance and is a flight risk for Konoha. The blonde frowned at the thought of going back to the academy but nodded anyways. Fine. So I'll be going to school while Shin and Sai play double agent. Naruto narrowed his eyes. When we decide on Itachi's replacement, how long will it take before we're doing missions again? Depends on how fast your teamwork progresses, understand? Naruto, Sai and Shin nodded their heads. And whatever you do, don't let anyone take Itachi's mask. He's still the crow. Naruto glanced at the mask for a few seconds before vanishing with a bow. Sai and Shin followed their friend's action, not bothering to wait for the formal dismissal. Sarutobi shook his head, sadly. "Good luck, boys," he whispered to the empty room. To be content. Next chapter, Naruto is going to the academy. And Sai and Shin discover some of Danzo's plan. Ages: the Uchiha massacre just happened, so Itachi is 13, Shin is 10, Sai is 9 and Naruto is 8. Warnings: beside Oak, Au and Bashin of several characters. Naruto will be strong and he will be smart. This story also features a cross-dressing Naruto. Akatsuki will be good and won't be with Madara. He will have an OC group do all his dirty work. As far as pairing goes, I'm not sure if I want to have a pairing for this fic. But if there is one, then it will most likely be Itanaru. Well, I guess that's everything I had to say. Reviews determine how fast I update. Happy New Year's, Minasan. Shini-chan. Warning: Au, Naru cross-dressing, and Oako, and I guess there will be bashing as well. Chapter 2. He couldn't believe this was actually happening. He turned and glared at his two best friends when he hears a snicker, but they just smiled and waved at him as he ran his brush through his hair. This isn't funny. I can't believe I'm going back to the academy. This just isn't fair. I mean, whoever hears about an Anbu, a captain at that, being demoted to an academy student? Naruto placed his brush down and turned to sit beside Shin and Sai on the bed. At least you'll be unique. Shin grinned. Bingo Book's feared S-rank shinobi Shadow Panther is nothing but an academy student. He snickered that should get a few laughs. Grabbing his pillow, Naruto glared at the silver-haired male, before whacking him upside his head. "Shut your mouth, Shin," he exclaimed with a pout as Sai chuckled. Turning to look at the time, a curse escaped his lips as he grabbed a pair of wide ankle boots and slipped them on before leaping to his feet. "I'm going to be late, and shouldn't you two already be with that team Danzo? We aren't expected at Root Base until this afternoon." Naruto nodded his head. "I'll see you tonight at the tower," he called out as he brought his hands together and vanished in a swirl of wind and appeared in front of the academy, where he dashed into the school searching for his class. After several minutes of walking through the hall, everyone's favorite blonde finally found the class he was looking for. Taking a deep breath, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki knocked on the door before sliding it open upon hearing the greeting. Umino Iruka-sensei?" he questioned, trying to ignore the looks he was getting from the teachers and the class. He was a Nanbu and he would not behave like the people he was impersonating. Everything was silent for a moment before the boys started catcalling and wolf whistling. Lewd comments escaping their lips while some just gawked at the beautiful boy, dressed in ankle-length white kimono with black and dark pink patterns. A matching obi wrapped around a small waist. The sleeve of the kimono was long enough to cover the person's hands from view. Elbow-length golden blonde hair cascaded down a slender back and diamond-colored eyes pierced the class. Iruka smiled at the kimono-clad blonde. "Uzumaki Naruto?" At the nod, the scarred Chunin continued, "The Hokage told me about your coming. Tell the class a bit about yourself. Name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams and your future goals." Naruto nodded his head. "Konnichiwa Minasan, hajimemashite. Watashi wa Uzumaki Naruto desu, dozo yoroshiku onegai shimasu." The blonde flashed a smile at the students, causing all the boys to blush and most of the girls to glare. "Let's see, my likes are training, fuinjutsu, kenjutsu and hanging out with friends. My dislikes are bullies, fangirls, those who wish to hurt my friends and the people precious to me. As for hobbies, working on my kenjutsu style and making new seals. My dreams and future goals are presently unknown." Iruka nodded his head. "Thank you for that lovely introduction, Naruto. Let's see where you can sit, shall we?" Looking around the class, the Chunin motioned towards the chair beside a stoic-looking boy wearing black sunglasses. "Oh, you can take the empty seat beside Aburame Shino. Can you please raise your hand, Shino?" Doing as asked, the stoic male raised his hand, ignoring the glares the other male students were giving him while observing the kimono-clad new student. There was something off about this girl, his bugs told him so. "Hi, Shino, right?" the blonde questioned. Nodding, the Aburame heir adjusted his shades. "Yes." The stoic male inclined his head in greeting before returning his attention to the front of the class. After all, it wouldn't be a good idea to get caught talking to the new student with Mizuki eyeing them like he is. Mizuki glared at the blonde before turning his attention towards the rest of the class with a smile that would even have Sai cringing at how obviously fake it was. Not that anyone could tell unless they could tell the difference between what's real and what's not. "Would someone please tell our new student what we were learning before her arrival?" Hands shot up in the air and Mizuki randomly pointed to someone, who stood and flashed the girl a wide smile. "We were going to learn about the different villages and countries, the leaders and some famous shinobi from said villages." "Right, Akyo." Iruka smiled, So let's start with the 5 major villages and the countries that said villages are in. Sasuke turned and stared bored at the teachers. Konohagakure in the land of fire, Kirigakure in the land of water, Sunagakure in the land of wind, Kumagakure in the land of lightning, Iwagakure in the land of earth. Iruka nodded his head. That's right. Very good, Sasuke. Squeals and female chatter broke out at that, while the males either glared at the Uchiha muttering about a show-off or rolling their eyes at his pompous attitude. Can some of you name the smaller countries surrounding the 5 major villages? The brunette questioned and frowned when no one made any move to answer. Anybody? All the girls glanced at Sasuke, who frowned. Naruto wanted to roll his eyes but refrained from doing such a thing. He had to remember these were 8-year-old and he'd be surprised had any of them actually studied the different countries beside the major 5. So with a sigh, he raised his hand in the air. Iruka blinked when he saw the new student's hands in the air. He, like the rest of the adults, knew who the blonde was, but unlike everyone else who had seen him, he knew the blue eyes boy, though feminine in appearance, was in fact a boy, having been one of the boy's caretakers when he was a baby. He smiled. Yes, Naruto? There are quite a few other countries that borders the major 5 shinobi countries. Do you want me to name them all, Iruka-sensei? The blonde asked. Iruka blinked. As much as you know. The Chunin stated with a nod of his head. Okay, well, there is Takigakure, Kusagakure, Danagakure, Yugakure, Uzushigakure, Amigakure, Yukigakure, Yumegakure, Tsukigakure. Naruto stopped when another voice started naming the countries he had yet to name, and turned in his seat to stare at the lazy-looking shinobi who was staring at him in interest. Shimogakure, Getsugakure, Ishigakure, Soragakure, Hoshigakure, Moyagakure. Shikamaru finished. Those are the minor hidden villages, but their leaders are addressed as such and not a cage. Aside from those, there are the countries in which those villages reside in. His lazy drawl-like voice caused a tic to form on Naruto's forehead. A beaming smile was flashed at Naruto and Shikamaru. That's right, and like Shikamaru said, there are some minor countries. Can anyone name some of those? Ta-no-kuni, Cha-no-kuni, Kawa-no-kuni and Tetsu-no-kuni. Shino replied, adjusting his glasses. Nodding, Iruka asked if anyone else knew some. Naruto glanced at Shikamaru, who rose an eyebrow as if he was silently challenging him, and with a scowl, the blonde faced the academy instructor. A voice in his head mocked him for being taunted by an academy student, but he pushed that voice away, as he began naming some: Uzu-no-kuni, Kuma-no-kuni, Tori-no-kuni, Sora-no-kuni, Umi-no-kuni, Numa-no-kuni, Tsuki-no-kuni. And like before, Shikamaru cut him off with a hidden smirk at the glare the blonde threw at him. Kuba no Kuni, Oni no Kuni, Sume no Kuni, Kiba no Kuni, Shimo no Kuni, Yama no Kuni, Na no Kuni, Mori no Kuni, Nami no Kuni, and no Kuni, Hayashi no Kuni, Danama no Kuni, Kage no Kuni, Mitsu no Kuni, they shouted at the same time. Silence rang out as the students glanced from the new student to the laziest student in the academy in shock. No one had ever seen Shikamaru that lively before. He was either sleeping or watching clouds because he found everything too troublesome. Some people had speculated that if eating wasn't a necessity, then he'd find that too much work as well. After getting over his surprise, Iruka smiled and nodded his head. Shikamaru, I'm happy to see that you're actually paying attention today and getting answers right. Good for you. Shikamaru sighed and placed his head back on the table. He had no idea what came over him, but when he saw how smart this Naruto was, he thought that there would finally be someone who can push him to study harder. Not that he cared much for grades or the like, it's just that he liked knowing things about the people around him in case he ever had to work with them in the future. Naruto groaned and slid down in his seat. He couldn't believe he had just done something like that. He was an Anbu captain and here he was trying to outmatch an academy student. He inwardly glared when a chuckle was heard in the recesses of his mind and withheld urge to scowl. It would seem that Kyuubi was awake from his nap. Now Kit, I resent that. It sounds like you want nothing to do with me, and that hurts my feelings. Naruto rolled his eyes inwardly. Kyuubi, not now. But Kit, this is positively great. I mean, how can an Anbu member get demoted all the way back to being in the academy? That's priceless. So whose idea was it? Itachi's, I bet. Blue eyes narrowed a bit. I'll talk to you later, Q. Alright. Right now isn't a good time. Naruto could practically feel the pout the feared demon fox was emitting and hid a smile. Sometimes it was hard to think of Kyuubi as evil when the demon in question was physically a few years older than Itachi and acted like a child most of the time. Fine Kit, I see how it is. I sleep for a week and when I'm finally awake and want to talk to my container, you ignore me and tell me it's not a good time. The blonde rolled his eyes. I'm sorry Q, but I still can't talk to you right now. After class I'll tell you what you missed. And why I'm in the academy. Okay. Sounds good Kit, I'll talk to you later then. Closing the mental connection he had with his inner demon, he tuned into what his teacher was saying and groaned when he heard the gray-haired Chunin asking a history questions about the Third Great Shinobi War. Great Shinobi War. There was a bridge that had been vital to Iwagakure line of supply. Can anyone tell me the name of this bridge? Where it's located? And what happened to it? Everyone blinked and stared at Mizuki before glancing towards Sasuke, who had a frown on his face. From the corner of his eyes, Naruto looked at Shino, who he knew was smart and most likely knew what bridge the teacher was talking about but wasn't going to make an effort to say anything. Shaking his head, he knew it was a typical of an Aburame, they only talk when they feel like it. Turning in his seat, he stared at the Nara who had his eyes closed. And scowled. That was typical for a male Nara as well. Sleeping. No one. Iruka looked around and sighed, these students really should study more. He glanced towards the pink-haired girl who usually knew all the answers only to sigh when he saw that, like most of the females, she was too busy staring at the Uchiha to pay attention to the questions that were being asked. We talked about the Third Shinobi War a few weeks ago. You need to start paying attention or you won't pass the exam at the end of the year, which means you won't be promoted to the 4th year. Mizuki opened his mouth to add something when Naruto decided he didn't want to listen to another lecture. The Kanabakyo, the bridge where the gods do not help, was located somewhere in Kusagaku, but it was destroyed by the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, and his students during the Third Shinobi War. Iruka smiled and nodded his head. Thank you, Naruto. I'm glad to see some of you have taken your studies seriously. The blonde grinned and shrugged. I had one of my best friends would tie me down, buy my favorite food and eat in front of me. He was a sadist like that, but it paid off. And it shows. Iruka nodded. I wish there was a way to motivate the whole class like that, but that tactic would only work on one other. He retorted, glancing towards the Akimichi, who was eating a bag of chips near the sleeping Nara. Iruka opened his mouth to say something but stopped when the bell rang. Alright, it seems class is over. I want you to study, Konoha, a history tonight, chapter 1 through chapter 5. We are going to have a quiz to see who actually read the book and who didn't. You're dismissed. The class ran out of the room, Naruto amongst them before he vanished in a swirl of wind. With Itachi, the young Anbu captain sat on a branch and sighed as he looked into the darkening sky. A snapping sound caused him to sit up and move into the shadow of the leaves so he could see who was entering the clearing, but they couldn't see him. Below him entered two people, both cloaked in a dark cloak with red clouds and an umbrella hat covered their heads. I could have sworn he was in this clearing. Are you sure? A monotone voice intoned. One of the figures nodded his head. I saw him enter the clearing and he never left unless he was under hedge. A hissing voice insisted. Itachi narrowed his eyes. If he wasn't mistaken, these two were members of the organization he was seeking to join with, the Akatsuki. Uchiha Itachi. We are here under order of our leader. He heard about what you did and sent us out in hopes of recruiting you to our cause. My partner and myself mean you no harm unless you prove to be a threat to us. Itachi frowned and adjusted his position. Identify yourself, he commanded, coolly. You know my name, so it's only right to return the favor. Very well. Sasori, but most know me as Akasuna no Sasori. And my partner I believe you already know. His Konoha's white snake, Orochimaru. Itachi's eyes widened slightly and he stared at the two. Stealing his nerve and wiping his free of any emotions, Itachi leapt down from his branch and stared at the two blankly. Fine. I'll meet this leader of yours. Orochimaru grinned. Good. It'd be such a waste to kill something so pretty. The snake Sanin stated, smirking at the look Itachi shot at him. A cross between disgust and indifferent. It was always fun to mess with the emotionally dead. Let's go. We must not keep Leader Sama waiting, Orochimaru. With that said, Sasori took off with his partner and Itachi at his heels. Itachi glanced over his shoulder, in the direction of Konoha. Ebony-colored eyes softened a bit. Stay safe, Naruto. We'll meet again someday. Facing his two escorts, black eyes hardened. Until that day though he had to observe Akatsuki and find out what their motive are and find out if they were a threat. With Naruto. After leaving the school in a sunshine to appear in his apartment, the flaxen-haired boy sat on his bed and opened the connection he had with the Kyuubi. You awake, Fluffy? A low growl was issued from the demon fox. What have I told you about calling me that, kid? And yes, if you couldn't tell I am awake, so tell me everything that I missed and why I can't sense Itachi in the village anymore. Did he go out on a mission? Naruto frowned and drew his legs upward to his chest to rest his chin on his knees. A week ago Councilman Shimura Danzo handed proof to the Sundaime about a coup that the Uchiha clan were planning. Not believing the man, Sarutobi sent out several Onbus to spy on them while we were out on that mission to Yukigakure. When we returned 3 days later, the Sundaime told us about what his Onbus discovered. Flashback. Crow, panther, Tiger and Raven entered the Hokage's office and stood in front of their leader. Anbu team elements had returned from our 2-month mission in Yukigakure, Hokage-sama. Smiling, the old man nodded his head. Good, good. So how was the mission? Did anything unexpected happen? Well, Kazahana-sama brother did a revolt and tried to have his brother killed so he could become the ruler after getting rid of the princess, but things didn't work out that way. We stopped the overthrow and stayed there long enough to make sure nothing else happens. Sarutobi bit down on his pipe as he stared at the four in front of him. He looked at Panther and Crow specifically, and as if coming to a decision he sent the Anbus hiding in the room out and placed a silencing jutsu on the room. Take a seat and remove your mask. I have news that you won't like and I know it will upset you to hear it. The four did as asked and stared at their leader in confusion. What is Hokage-sama? Naruto questioned. Sighing, the Sun Daime told the four about what Danzo had told him and how the Anbus he had set out to spy on the clan came back with proof of a revolt and how they planned to seize Konoha. By the end, Naruto was silently sobbing into his arms as the Hokage gave them the mission to assassinate the Uchiha clan. He never felt the trembling arms of Uchiha Itachi wrap around his body or the comforting words Sai and Shin were whispering. Flashback end. Kyuubi didn't know what to say. He couldn't believe that Uchiha clan would do something like that. It just didn't sound like something they did. They did take in Naruto and raised him when no one else wanted to. Standing up from his seat on the bed, Naruto stripped out of kimono and threw on a pair of black pants and a black long-sleeve shirt. Slipping on a pair of black ninja sandals, the blonde made a seal and shined out of the house, only to arrive in what appeared to be a graveyard. Walking past the numerous headstones, the blonde headed towards the monument. Dropping to his knees, the blonde bowed his head. Why did you have to do something like that? Tears filled the boy's blue eyes. He couldn't believe that a clan who had always been there for him, protected him, had actually been traitors. They trained him after all. Why would they train someone they had planned to kill? What was the point in doing something like that? Heaving sobs escaped the boy. He didn't know how long he lay there crying before he felt Shin and Sai's arrival. Shin and Sai. The double agents leaned against the wall on either side of Danzo, watching as the man cackled at the Uchiha clan destruction. And the best part is they were innocent. Two pseudo-root shinobi gasped inaudibly at what their leader said and glanced at each other before looking at Danzo in hidden contempt. What do you mean by that, Danzo-sama? You told the Hokage that you had proof of a stage coup against the village. The Sun Daime had Anbus out spying on the clan and they found evidence of the crime. The elderly man grinned. Fake, of course. And the Anbu team that was sent to spy was actually fellow root operatives disguised as Hiruzen's Anbus. The bandaged man leaned back in his seat. You see, Shisui and Itachi had an argument. A few weeks before he left for the mission in Yuki with his team, it seemed that both of the Uchihas had a soft spot for the Kyuubi container. But their conversation was overheard and they didn't like the fact that the demon child was seemingly enchanting the prodigy and the genius of the Uchiha clan and went to haunt the monster in order to teach it a lesson. Sai and Shin shared a glance before looking at their so-called master. Itachi had told them about the fight when he appeared with the second stage of the Sharingan. Naruto had been saddened by one of his friend's death but relieved to know that Shisui died with a smile. Yeah, well, they didn't get too far when both Shisui and Itachi attacked the mob of shinobi and villagers alike. One of the shinobi got a lucky shot in and ended up severely wounding Shisui before they were all dealt with by a pissed-off Itachi. Shisui was dying and he knew it, so he did what any fool in love would do. He sacrificed his own life to protect Naruto. He told Itachi to kill him, effectively giving him the Mangekyo Sharingan eyes to better be able to ensure the blonde's safety. Danzo sneered. Shisui also told Itachi to take his eyes. To use them when the time comes. Shin wanted to snarl. And how does Milord know that? I had several of my Anbu spying on them. I wanted Shisui's eyes for myself but it was foiled when that blasted Itachi took them. A smirk graced his face, but I got even when I faked the report for a coup and told Hiruzen to have Itachi assign the task of taking care of his clan. I killed 3 birds with one kunai, in a sense. I killed off the biggest supporter of Uzumaki Naruto, got rid of the boy's most fiercest protector and got all the Sharingan eyes I need. Sai and Shin looked at Danzo in confusion. Not like the man could see it because of the mask they wore. What do you mean by that, Danzo-sama? The gray-haired shinobi questioned. It was no secret that the re-education Danzo had done to all of his members had no real effect on Shin, for he never really gave up them and his long-time exposure to Sai rubbed off, only slightly, and the bandaged man didn't wish to separate the two or he'd never hear the end of it. Glaring at the outspoken boy, Danzo shook his head. When Itachi left the compound after he and his team did their mission, well, I had 2 of my Anbu steal several of the Uchiha's prized Sharingan eyes from their dead body. I'll have someone implant them onto my person when the time comes. I really should thank Hatake Kakashi for the idea. I don't really need you to, you can leave. The 2 wasted no time and quickly left to look for Naruto. As much as it pained them to do so, They knew they needed to tell the flaxen-haired boy. It had nearly killed both Itachi and Naruto when they found out what the Uchiha clan was planning and that they had been the one task in getting rid of them. The only solace they had was the Uchiha clan all died never knowing who their killers were, but to find out that the only people to have really cared and helped raise you were killed for one person's greed and no other reason, would positively destroy the blonde. Without saying anything to their leader, the two disappeared. To be continued. I want to thank those who reviewed, and I was surprised by how much favorite and alerts I had gotten just for the prologue. Pairings are still unknown, but there are people who wanted the Itanaru, so we'll see. It won't be too hard to see them as a couple later since they are already pretty close. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but Orochimaru is going to be good. You'll find out about his past in either the next chapter or the following one. Reviews determine how soon I update the next chapter. Shini-chan, locking onto their friend's chakra, the two appeared beside him and looked around. The Uchiha clan graveyard. With a solemn look, the two turned and glanced in the direction they knew their friend would be. The left, under a blooming sakura tree, was a stone crafted to look like the Uchiha clan crest, and carved into the stone were hundreds of names. A memorial stone. Despite being traitors, Naruto wanted to create something for the clan that cared and loved him when no one else had. Days turned into weeks, but he never stopped until every last Uchiha had been buried, and a stone monument displayed every Uchiha that was killed during the massacre and even those that were on the Kia Memorial Stone in Training Ground 7. Sure enough, there he sat, his back facing them, staring at the stone in front of him. Shin and Sai remembered standing not too far from Naruto as he made the stone and then began carving their name onto it when he was finished. They remembered feeling helpless as they watched the small boy sobbing as he engraved the last three names into the memorial stone. The three who were most important in the clan besides Itachi: Uchiha Shisui, Uchiha Mikado, and Uchiha Fugaku. Walking over, the two sat on either side of the blonde and wrapped their arms around the slender frame. From here, they could see that their friend's eyes were bloodshot, evident of the hours he spent crying. The area around his eyes were pink and puffy. They really hated doing this, but knew they had to, or it would hurt more later. Shin glanced at Sai, who frowned before turning his eyes back towards Naruto, his dark eyes softening. "Naruto, we found out some news. And you aren't going to like it. At all," Sai whispered, tightening his hold on the blonde, who glanced at him. Blue eyes widened as Sai told him everything he and Shin found out by Dunzo's admittance. Mouth hung open as he took in all the information given. An anguish cry filled the silence, and it took him a second to realize the sound came from him before he collapsed onto the ground. Loud sobs poured from his throat. Shin and Sai quickly brought the boy into a hug. They were forced to release the blonde when red chakra leaked out of the seal and surrounded the blonde, protectively, as the boy sobbed. After a few minutes, Kyuubi's chakra began fading and Sai and Shin returned to Naruto's side, trying to soothe the smaller boy. "Why?" they heard him whisper. Voice hollow, emotionless. Naruto didn't know what to do. His heart hurt, and the only thing he felt like doing was curling up into a ball and just cry his eyes out. A pounding pain erupted behind his eyes. A burning ache, like someone had taken something sharp and was stabbing his eyes with it. Unbearable, he let out a cry, and gripped the side of his head when the pain became too much. "Naruto!" Shin called out, grabbing at his friend's shoulder. "What's wrong?" Turning to Sai, he told his friend to get the Hokage. Nodding, the Raven took off towards the tower while Shin tried to get the blonde to respond. "Naruto!" Hokage's office. Sai ran into the tower and, ignoring the yells from the secretary and the Anbus guarding the door as he shoved them away, SNF barged into the Hokage's office while slamming the door behind him. He had no time for formality when Naruto was in trouble. Sarutobi blinked at one of his best Anbus entrance. For as long as he knew Sai, the boy, though sarcastic and emotionless, was never one to barge into his office without announcing himself. "Sai? What is it?" Sai took a breath of air. "It's Naruto, Hokage-sama. Something's wrong with him," he called out. Sarutobi stood up. "What do you mean by that? What happened?" Sai told him what he and Shin learned out of Danzo's own mouth, while the Sun Daime could do nothing but pale at what was said. A whole clan, wiped out, because of one man's greed and quest for power. Sarutobi clenched his teeth in rage. But he couldn't dwell on the Uchiha clan genocide right now, not when Naruto was hurting over the discovery and what he had done. "Let's go." With Itachi. A whole day passed since he arrived here. A base well hidden behind barriers and seal that no one but those in the organization would be able to bypass, which he could admit to being amazed by, but he wasn't about to let his guard down, especially since he had no idea who these people were and why they wanted him for. And any place Orochimaru was associated with wouldn't be a place he wanted anything to do with. Itachi sighed as he turned to glance at the photo in his hands. It was a picture of him sitting beneath a sakura tree, Shisui to his side while Naruto was stretched across the both of them, while the flower petals danced in an unforeseen breeze around the blonde. Sitting on a branch, in the tree above the trio was Saiyan Shin. The latter had his arms wrapped around the former as both grinned. The picture had been taken by Mikoto several days after Team Anbu Element was formed. Shisui had his own team, but he had spent most of his time helping them. With a small smile, the Uchiha heir caressed the blonde's face before returning the photo to a place no one would dare look. Inside the hidden pockets inside his cloak. A knock on the door caused Itachi to turn with a frown. Standing up, he walked over and slid the door open. "Yes?" he responded, black eyes boring into the blue-haired woman. "What is it?" "The leader will see you now," she whispered, voice devoid of any emotions, reflecting her face and eyes his head. Itachi told her to lead the way. With a firm nod, she turned on her feet and led the captain of Anbu Team Elements towards the organization's leader. Through many twists and turns the duo had remained silent, not that Itachi minded. He liked the silence unless he was with his friends. After what seemed to be an hour of walking but was really just 10 minutes, they stopped at a door. "Leader Sama, I brought Uchiha Itachi," the woman called out after knocking on the door. A grunt was heard from inside. "Come in, Konan." Doing as asked, Konan stepped inside the room and motioned Itachi in before closing it behind the teen, before walking to stand behind the leader. Glancing around the office, he saw a man with orange hair and piercing purple eyes that had a ripple-like design. Itachi's eyes widened at the sight of those eyes. They were said to be legendary. The eyes of a god. The Rinnegan had no equal, and the only thing that would be able to match the power of said eyes was another rare Dujutsu, one not many were aware of, and the only way to obtain them is to be blessed by the Shinigami himself at birth. The Shinigami. Itachi was pulled back from his musing by the sound of the man in front addressing him. "Welcome, Itachi-san. My name is Pain, I'm the leader of Akatsuki. You are to address me as either Pain-sama or Leader-sama, it matters not to me. Now you must be wondering why I've sent 2 of my members after you, yes?" "Yes, Leader-sama." Itachi nodded his head. Pain smirked. "It's quite simple. You've heard about the Jinchurikis, right? The containers keeping the world safe from the demons they hold?" "Yes, Leader-sama." The Uchiha whispered, heart pounding. He hoped Naruto wasn't going to be in danger just because he holds the Kyuubi at bay. Shuffling some papers on his desk, the leader glanced towards the teen. "Well, Akatsuki's main purpose is to gather the Jinchuriki and protect them from Kokui." "Dark Shadow." "Kokui?" Itachi questioned. "Who are they, Leader-sama? Are they after the Jinchuriki as well?" Pain nodded his head. "Kokui is another organization who's after the Jinchuriki, but unlike us they want them in order to extract the bijus from their body, which will essentially kill the host in the process." Itachi narrowed his eyes at the mere thought of someone killing Naruto just to extract the Kyuubi from him. He stared at the man before him, who returned the stare. "Basically Akatsuki will gather the Jinchuriki before Kokui can and protect them." Pain nodded his head. "But how can I be sure of what you speak when I'm well aware that most, if not all, of the members are Nukenins, one of which is the Sannin Orochimaru, who is known for his experiments on both shinobis and civilians. And then there is someone like me who murdered his entire clan to test my powers. What makes you think you can trust me?" Pain grinned. "You make a good point, Itachi, but all the people here are a lot different than what people say they are, but you're going to have to find out their story on your own. You might want to start with Orochimaru though. You'll be surprised by what you find out. And for the trusting you, I know I can." "How?" the Uchiha questioned. Pain grin widened. "One of your best friend is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and I know how much you care for him. My spy stated as such when I asked about his treatment." Itachi frowned at the thought of someone spying on Naruto and no one being any wiser about it at that. But before he could say anything, the Rinnegan user waved his hand, dismissing him. "You can go, I just wanted to introduce myself and welcome you. Oh, before you leave, I should tell you that the group operates in groups of 2 or more. Never solo, so you will be meeting your partner tomorrow, along with the rest of the group." "Who's out on mission at this moment?" Resisting the urge to scowl, the Uchiha heir nodded his head and turned to leave, but paused when Pain halted him once again and told him to seek out Orochimaru for the answers that he wanted. With a nod, Itachi left the office to search for Orochimaru. He wanted those answers and he would get them. Entering the living quarters, the Uchiha narrowed his eyes at the sight of Sasori, Orochimaru and 2 others, a blonde male and a spiky black-haired male who were both around his age. "Hey, Itachi." Orochimaru smirked. "Welcome to the group." Crossing his arms, Itachi narrowed his eyes. "I want answers. Leader-sama said you had them, so start talking." The snake Sannin leaned back in his seat. "Very well, take a seat and I'll tell you a very interesting story," he replied with a grin as he waved his hand. With a frown, the Uchiha did what was asked and took a seat on the couch. "Before we begin, let me introduce to you Datara V1 Toby, was found by another member and brought here. He doesn't remember anything about himself or where he's from. Jerking his head in the direction of his partner, he continued with the introduction. Sasori is the redhead, and as I'm sure you know, he's from Suna and of course you know who I am. Itachi gave a nod of his head. Guys, this is Uchiha Itachi, hailed as the genius of his generation. Greetings were given by Datara and Tobi, while Sasori just nodded his head in acknowledgement. Let me see. Golden eyes turned and stared at Itachi. You were told that I had captured, tortured and experimented on hundreds of shinobi and civilians alike in my sick obsession of trying to gain immortality, but I was found out and escaped Konoha. Itachi nodded his head and Orochimaru grinned. What if I were to tell you that it was a lie? Black eyes widened slightly in surprise before staring at the snake Sannin with his Sharingan activated, and Orochimaru knew in the instant that he had the Uchiha's full and undivided attention. With Naruto, Shin, Sai, and Sarutobi. When Sai and the Sun Daime arrived, Naruto was already lying passed out in Shin's arms. Sarutobi looked around in surprise and shocked to discover that they were in the Uchiha graveyard. He wasn't even aware anyone even made one for them. A beautifully crafted stone stood a few feet away and he could tell that that monument was based off of the Kia stone. What is this place? Shin glanced at the Hokage. This is Naruto and Itachi's secret place. They found it a long time ago and showed Shisui, Sai and I. We fell in love with the beauty here and decided that this would be our hangout spot or the place we'll come to if ever we need to get away from the villagers and how cruel they can be. The Sun Daime nodded his head and glanced towards the figure lying unconscious in Shin's arms. Worry gripped the aged man's heart at the sight of the young boy he considers a grandson. The agony the blonde was going through was etched perfectly upon his motionless face and only made obvious by the red puffy skin beneath his eyes. What happened? Shin looked up. I don't know, Hokage-sama. After Naruto found out what Danzo had done, he broke down. Kyuubi's chakra wrapped around Naruto, as if he was trying to comfort him. When the chakra faded, Sai and I returned to his side. He asked his why before he gripped his head as if he was in agony before Kyuubi wrapped Naruto in his chakra. Again, I believe the fox brought Naruto to him so he could better help him. Sarutobi nodded his head and sighed. That damn Danzo. He needs to be dealt with and soon. For this treachery, I'll have his head. The elderly Hokage hissed. I'm going to notify the fire daimyo of the Uchiha clan genocide by the hands of Danzo, and when I gather the needed proof, I will personally light the fire to burn him after he spends time with Anko, Ibiki, Itachi and Naruto in torture and interrogation. Shin and Sai nodded their heads in agreement. Danzo needed to suffer before he is killed and they wouldn't have it any other way. And if Kyuubi had any say in the matter, which he most likely will, then that Warhawk will be suffering through a demon's torture as well before he is granted relief, and not a moment sooner. Shin brushed his friend's blonde hair and gasped when Naruto's eyes opened. Hearing the surprised sound, both the Hokage and Sai turned to look at Shin only to stare in shock at the sight of the blonde. It wasn't the fact that he was awake that stunned the three, no, it was the fact that Naruto's eyes had changed from their beautiful blue hue to a deep dark shade of black that held glimmers of silver, almost like stars set upon a cloudless night sky, and a scarlet double-bladed scythe-like design that swung side to side, slowly, like a pendulum, hypnotizing anyone who stares into it. What is that? Whispered Shin. A while ago, inside Naruto's mind, Naruto lay curled up against Kyuubi, sobbing his heart out and gripping the fox's clothing. A soft growl escaped the fox's throat as he ran his fingers through Naruto's hair. That damn Danzo. It was moments like this that the fox wished for freedom so that he could tear apart those like that warmongering son of a bitch, whose only real allegiance was to themselves and to hell with anyone else that got in his way. People like Danzo pissed him off the most. Naruto. A voice whispered, causing Kyuubi to whip his head up trying to locate the voice. The tone was soft, feminine, like a mother hushing her distraught child back to sleep after a nightmare. It was unfamiliar, and that's what alarmed the Kyuubi. He had no idea who was here or even how they were here. Naruto. Can you hear me? Kyuubi narrowed his eyes and shifted Naruto into his lap as the blonde sat up and turned his head, trying to find the person who was calling out to him. Who is it? How are you here? A laugh. Naruto, we've been with you since your birth and we shall remain with you long after you part from this world. We are your partners, your soulmates, and we will fight your battles together. The light feminine voice from before echoed. You've been blessed by the Shinigami, young one. My name is Maru. A tall young man walked into Naruto and Kyuubi's line of sight. Long wild green hair and soft gray-colored eyes. He was dressed in a loose garment reminiscent to what a samurai would use, a dark green and purple breastplate underneath a light purple kimono with a chain around his waist and a dull gold adornment on his chest. Both his arms and legs were covered in ice and he had a tail with an icy tip. A masked samurai, clad in a full-body armor, stood behind the green-haired male. His long black hair was pulled back and tied by a silver ribbon. My name is Senbun Sakura. And I am Benihime, beloved. A beautiful woman appeared. Her hair was like fire and eyes resembled gems. She wore a red kimono with a light orange sash. Naruto glanced at the three in surprise. "Could you hear our names, beloved?" Benihime questioned with a smile. "Speak our names, if you could hear it." The blonde nodded his head. "Hirinmaru, Senbonzakura, and Benihime." He responded. "You can finally hear it. We've been calling out to you for a long time now," Hirinmaru stated. "I bet you want to know what we are and how we are here and all of that, don't you?" Naruto nodded his head and the three took a seat in front of both their blonde partner and the Kyuubi. "Well, to start, we are the manifestation of your soul, otherwise known as Zanpakuto spirits." With Itachi, Orochimaru just finished telling Itachi how he had just discovered Danzo's hidden lab and was about to report his finding to the Hokage when he appeared along with a handful of Anbus and Enma, his monkey partner. Sarutobi-sensei stated how he couldn't believe how far I had fallen from the boy he had known. When he began accusing me of being the person responsible for the experiments, I knew Danzo had framed me, and by being found in the lab, well, I had no way to dispute Sensei's claims, so I admitted to it knowing it would give me the second I needed to escape the lab and Konoha altogether. "What?" Itachi furrowed his eyebrow in confusion. He couldn't believe this. Orochimaru grinned. "I was framed, Itachi. Danzo was doing his experiments trying to create the perfect weapon for his use. I also found out that he injected himself with the Shodai's DNA, for what purpose, I don't know." When Sarutobi-sensei arrived and saw me standing near a body in the lab, I knew it was useless to plead innocent when not only was I standing in a well-hidden underground lab, but also standing over a dead body. There was no way he would believe me, so I fled. Itachi frowned, wheels turning and spinning as he took in all the information that Orochimaru told him. He saw no reason for Orochimaru to lie, and just by looking at the snake Sannin, he knew the man was speaking the truth, but this revelation brought about another. Danzo was the one who found out about. Eyes wide, the Uchiha heir got to his feet. "My clan never planned a coup, did they?" Orochimaru shook his head. He felt for the young boy. He'd heard that Konoha had produced a young team of Anbus, children's really, and had gone out to find out more about them, and was shocked by what he had found out. Knowing that Itachi and his team was the ones dispatched to eliminate the Uchiha clan, he couldn't even begin to comprehend how Itachi, and from what he saw from his observation, Naruto, was going to handle the truth. With a sigh, the White Snake decided it would be best just to tell him now. "From what I could tell, Danzo always hated your clan because they would block him from taking Naruto and molding him into the perfect weapon. Your clan was quite content with their position in the village, so I'd have to say, no, it's highly possible that your clan was innocent in the charges against them. He most likely used you to get rid of two obstacles in his way. With both your clan and yourself out of the picture, I would think Danzo thought it would be easy to get to Naruto." Sharingan flaring in rage, Itachi calmly stormed away. The other members shivered at the cold fury that emitted from the young boy. "I'm going out to train," was his departing words. Entering the forest, Itachi made sure he was far enough from the base before collapsing, tear blurring his eyes. "Oh God, what have I done?" Burying his face into his lap, the 13-year-old cried for the first time in years. "With Naruto." "And that is everything?" Hirinmaru glanced at the blonde. "We'll teach you what you need to know about Kido, Ho-Ho and Hakuto. Along with those abilities, we will also be working with you individually so we can unleash your full potential. We will teach you our techniques and how to improve upon them and the best ways you can do it." Naruto glanced at Kyuubi before facing the three and slowly nodded his head. "That is interesting. So you'll basically be training me in the Shinigami arts?" Hirinmaru, Senbonzakura and Benihime nodded their heads. "Yes." Kyuubi frowned, before remembering something. Earlier something happened to Naruto. It felt like 1,000 burning kunai was stabbed into his eyes. I felt it as well, but not to the extent as Naruto most likely did. The pain was too great, so I brought him here, knowing the pain wouldn't be able to reach him in this place. It's his mind after all. Now that you mention it, I do recall being in a great deal of physical pain, but my psychological and emotional pain outweighed my physical one when I came here. He turned to face his Zanpakuto spirits, who was blinking in surprise, sharing a look between themselves, causing him and Kyuubi to narrow their own in thought. "Do you know what could have happened?" The three nodded before Senbonzakura started speaking. "It seemed you hold the Shinigami's favor, Naruto. Not only has he blessed you with 3 spirits to guide and help you, but he granted you what is known as the Shinigami eyes. There has only been 2 others who had been blessed by the Shinigami and had the potential to unlock those eyes, but both died before they ever had the chance to do so." Naruto and Kyuubi gaped in surprise before the latter asked if these eyes were like a dujutsu, to which the spirits nodded their head to. "In a way, yes," Benihime replied, "but unlike a Kiki Genkai, the Shinigami eyes aren't hereditary and will only work for that one person." Seeing the blonde's confused stare, Hirinmaru smiled lightly. In other words, let's say this Danzo wanted the Shinigami eyes and sends his roots to assassinate you to steal your eyes. He won't be able to use those eyes even if he did obtain them because he wasn't blessed by the Shinigami, therefore he doesn't have the genetic code needed to utilize the attacks or even to activate them. So in short, they would be completely useless to him, and upon his death, the Shinigami will torture him for all of eternity. Not saying he wouldn't deserve such a fate after everything he's done, but why would the Shinigami do such a thing if that team did kill me? Not like that will ever happen, but if he ever did, got lucky. Senbonzakura smiled, though it went unnoticed, as he addressed his young partner. It's because you are the Shinigami's avatar. In short, you will do away with the evils of the world and help to restore the balance. How? Naruto questioned. Benihime caressed the boy's face. With help from those you trust, beloved. With the eyes of the death god, no one will be able to stand up to you. You'll be able to peer into the hearts of those around you and judge them by what you truly see and not what they pretend to be, for even the coldest of man may be the warmest you'll ever meet. Naruto nodded his head, understanding. Itachi, Fugaku, Kyuubi could be taken for cold, cruel and heartless, but it was them that were the most kindest alongside some others. I get it. What else are these eyes capable of? Channel chakra to your eyes, Naruto. Senbonzakura watched as the blonde did as asked. The group present saw the pools of deep blue dark until they resembled the cloudless night sky with silver stars and a deep red dual-blade scythe that dicked, side to side. Kyuubi narrowed his eyes as he felt them become heavy and quickly shook off the hazy feeling. Kit, deactivate those eyes. He called out, and once the eyes were gone from his sight, he sighed. It would seem those eyes give off a hypnotizing quality when it's activated. Benihime nodded her head. Yes. The Shinigami eyes. They hypnotize their opponents with a single glance, a false sense of security before they strike. With the Shinigami eyes, Naruto will be able to learn things at a faster rate, and he'll know everything about using Kido, Ho-Ho and Hakuto instinctively, but, to be able to use them properly, he'll still need to practice. Benihime glanced at her fellow spirits before staring at the small boy. There's one ability of the Shinigami eyes, that you'd like, beloved. Hirinmaru nodded his head. We heard what happened and believe that this ability of the Shinigami will make you, and that boy you're close with, happy. He smiled lightly. One of the ability of the Shinigami eyes is called Shinomai, the Dance of Death. It's almost like necromancy but permanent. It took Naruto only a second to understand before his jaw dropped. I can bring them back? Benihime nodded her head. Yes, but as of right now you can't. The female responded. Not only did you just awaken the Shinigami, but you don't know any of its abilities yet, and there will be no one to teach you to use the ability outside of your mind. So, I have to master the Shinigami, was it? The blonde questioned, earning 3 nods. How long will it take me until I can use that ability, the Shinomai? Senbonzakura frowned. Depends on how fast you adapt. Could be anywhere from days to years. I see. Naruto eyes lowered. Is there another way I could bring them back though? They didn't deserve to die because one greedy man decided they were in his way. Tears welled up within oceanic-colored eyes as the blonde broke down in tears. Benihime wrapped her arms around the blonde boy, running a hand through his hair. Of course, beloved. We will teach you everything you have to learn about your new abilities. But until then, you could use the spell Shinigami-sama uses time to time. I warn you though, using this incantation takes a lot of energy, and with your reserves you could most likely bring 3 people back max. Even then you'll most likely lose consciousness. So what do you want to do, Naruto? Wait until you master your eyes or use the spell? Kyuubi smiled as he watched the small boy. He already knew what Naruto's decision would be, and he was happy the kid was actually thinking about the choices he had, but when it came down to it, the fox knew his host, and he would choose. What do I have to do? To do the latter. Hirinmaru ruffled the boy's hair, smiling at the blonde's determination. Activate your Shinigami and wake up. The blonde opened his eyes and stared at his 2 best friend and his grandfather figure, with the Shinigami activated, noting that everything appeared to be different, but he had no time to admire the view when he heard a feminine voice in his head. Repeat these words, beloved. Dal tuo sono eterno io grido a te, svegliarsi. Then say the 3 names you wish to revive, tilde, from your eternal slumber, I call to you. Awaken. Doing as told, the blonde repeated the words Benihime whispered. The black side-like design in his eyes spun quickly as the air around the group pulsed, like a heartbeat. The 3 watched in silence, unsure about what was happening, but their jaws unhinged and fell to the floor, eyes threatening to pop out of their sockets if they got any bigger. But they had every right to be as shocked as they were, for standing there in blood-stained and tattered clothes were 3 people who were supposed to be dead. Uchiha Fugaku, Uchiha Mikado, and Uchiha Shisui. Naruto stared at the 3 silently, the Shinigami spinning several more times before deactivating as the blonde fell to the ground, Or would have if a pair of arms hadn't caught the boy first. The last thought that entered the boy's thoughts before blackness claimed him and he fell into blissful sleep. To be continued. No, Fugaku, Mikado and Shisui aren't going to stay in Konoha. You'll find out what will happen with them in the next chapter, along with Itachi. There will be a few more people Naruto will resurrect but who will be discovered in later chapters. Yes, Orochimaru is good. Yes, Danzo is a bastard. And yes, Naruto has 3 Zanpakutos because I couldn't decide between the 3, so I figure why not give him all 3. Yes, he will learn Kido, Hakuto, and Ho-Ho, which includes Shunpo, Seka, and Utsusemi. And yes, he will be powerful as is his right. All the Akatsuki members are good, and yes, Tobi is Madara. You'll find out who the leader of Koku is further into the story. He'll probably be the only canon character unless I throw some other people in that group just for the heck of it. Pairing, most likely Itanaru, or a yaoi harem. Naruto. The amount of reviews determine how fast I update. So review, if you want. Shini. In the Hokage's office where the group had migrated, Naruto lay curled up against Mikado's side as the Hokage told them what happened. Naruto had awoken a while ago in Shisui's arms only to start sobbing upon seeing them, alive, and began apologizing over and over. When Naruto began to hyperventilate from a mild anxiety attack, his greatest fear would be losing the 3 Uchihas he considered a mother, father and a brother. Mikado had picked the boy up and sat on the couch and began running her fingers through the boy's hair while humming a light tone that would hopefully soothe the blonde's troubled thoughts. It was few minutes after that when Sarutobi told the 3 what happened and why the Uchiha clan had been killed off. To say that the 3 were pleased would be saying Danzo was a kitten. It was the greatest understatement of the millennium. They were downright pissed and wanted nothing more than to hunt that one-eyed fucker down and murder him. Cut him into so much pieces that even a Shinigami wouldn't be able to locate all the pieces. That bastard. How dare he? And to use 2 of my own boys to do the killing, unacceptable. Fugaku raged, I want that bastard's head on a platter. Sarutobi nodded his head, I know, Fugaku, and we will. Sai and Shin are gathering proof of all of Danzo's wrongdoings and we will bring this up during the next council meeting where we will hold a public execution for everything that is done thus far. It makes you question everything else that he has ever said, Shisui stated, like the whole Orochimaru fiasco. What if the Snake Sanin wasn't even the one doing the experimenting? After all, Danzo was trying to create the ultimate weapon, loyal only to him. And if Orochimaru discovered Danzo's secret, Sarutobi gaped, he would have felt threatened, and before Orochimaru could tell me about it, Danzo came forward with another lie and he had no choice but to flee the village. Turning his head, the Hokage glanced at Shin and Sai, I want you two to check that out as well. We need to see if Orochimaru is a victim of Danzo's ploy as well. Shin and Sai nodded their heads in agreement. The more they found out about Danzo, the more monstrous he becomes. Now if only they could get the needed proof that will nail the bastard without him worming his way out. And Itachi? Do you know where he is? Mikado questioned, running her fingers through the blonde's hair. And how is Sasuke? Sarutobi sighed, Itachi went out to investigate a new group. No one knows anything about them or their motives. I might have to send you out to be with Itachi because I can't have you stay in the village and have someone discover you're alive. That wouldn't bode well, especially not if Danzo hears about it. And Sasuke, well, he is indifferent to everyone, not wanting to be around anyone and is usually found off by himself, brooding or sulking, whatever you Uchiha men do when you're in one of your moods. Sai grinned when Shin elbowed him for his lack of tact. Shisui chuckled, oh, so he's off pouting somewhere? Uchihas do not pout, Shisui. Fugaku snorted, but everyone gathered knew better. The Uchihas would like to believe that they were above pouting, but they weren't. The males did it more often than one would think, but they disguised it as a frown. Shisui only smiled at his uncle's statement and didn't bother to rebuke it. Opening his mouth to say something, he closed it when a groan was heard and everyone turned towards the source. With Naruto in his mind, the blonde had his head in Kyubi's lap, while the aforementioned fox was running his claws through the golden hair, mimicking Mikado's actions. Blue eyes were staring at Benihime, Hirinmaru and Senbonzakura as they spoke to him about his new abilities. After you wake, we will help create a training seal for you and your friends to use. It's almost like a hyperbolic time chamber, Hirinmaru stated. Wherever the seal is placed, time will move according to your will. For example, a minute in the outside world would be like 3 days in sealed room. Senbonzakura nodded. In the sealed room, 24 hours would be, at the least, 4 years. You'll be able to learn more about your Shinigami and all of your Shinigami abilities and such. That's amazing, Naruto whispered in awe that such a thing could be possible. In one day he would be able to master his new abilities. Who else could say something like that? And would I age at all while I'm in the room? Benihime shook her head. No, Kuin Hyokitsu Fuuin, does what its name implies. You will only age for however long the outside world goes by. For example, while you're in the room and a year outside passes, then you will age 1 year. Naruto nodded his head with a thoughtful look. And I'll be able to bring friends with me? Getting a nod, the boy smiled. That's great. I can start creating that seal when I wake. Kyuubi grinned at that. Just don't overwork yourself, Gaki. I won't. The blonde stated with a smile before he waved. I'm waking up. I'll talk to your four later. Naruto called out before vanishing from the room. With Itachi, he didn't know what to do now. He knew he should write to Naruto telling him of what really happened, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. The news of them being assigned the task of massacring their clan had broken his fragile blood, but to find out that everything was a lie, it would destroy Naruto, and he didn't want to be the cause of hurting him further. Sighing, the dark-haired male rolled over and stared at the blank wall. Naruto, I'm sorry, but I can't tell you the truth. You're still hurting over the loss, and I don't want to be the cause of any more of your pain. I'll tell you the truth someday, when we meet each other face to face. Do you think that's a good idea? A voice called out, causing Itachi to turn and glare at the intruder. I knocked, but you never answered, so I let myself in. Itachi frowned. What do you want, Orochimaru? Wanting to see if you were all right. No matter how tough you try to be, you're still just a child, Itachi, and as one, you have the right to cry, despite what others may think. Boys do cry. The snake Sanin stated with a small smile which seemed to enhance his golden eyes. Itachi narrowed. I don't need to cry, he stated, which earned him a smirk from the snake Sanin. Why are you here? He repeated in hopes the older male would answer so he could leave. Pain-sama wants to talk to you about something. He said it could wait till tomorrow though. Orochimaru turned. Don't you think the boy deserves to know the truth now instead of later? It's better in the long run. That way he can grieve his loss now when the death is fresh instead of later when the pain of loss is healed. With that said, the snake Sanin left the room. Sitting up, Itachi frowned. Orochimaru made a good point. Would it be better if he told Naruto the truth now? Closing his eyes, the Uchiha prodigy tried to think of something. And upon making his decision, he knew the snake was right. Standing, he made his way to the desk and sat down. Opening one of the drawers, he pulled out a scroll, a brush and a bottle of ink and began writing. Several minutes later, he placed the brush down and rolled up the parchment and sealing it close with a black ribbon. Biting his thumb hard enough to draw blood, the Uchiha heir ran through a sequence of hand seals before slamming his hands on the floor, calling out, summoning technique, and in a cloud of smoke a beautiful raven appeared. Itachi-sama, how can I help you? Itachi picked up the scroll. I need you to bring this to Naruto-kun for me, Alistair. Alistair nodded and grabbed the scroll with his talons and flapped his wings. I shall deliver this to Naruto-sama right away. Itachi-sama. Do you want me to tell him anything else? Tell him I'm sorry I couldn't be there with him. The dark-haired boy whispered. I want you to stay with him in case he wants to send anything back for me. Alistair nodded. Goodbye for now, Itachi-sama. Itachi sighed. Naruto-kun. Hokage's office. Naruto hugged Mikado tightly, having awoken a while ago, and refused to release her. I'm so happy that you're back. All three of you, he stated, tears in his eyes. I've missed you guys. Mikado smiled and rubbed the boy's back. And we are happy to see you are fine as well, Naruto-kun, she whispered, releasing the blonde when Shisui approached and crouched in front of them. Hey, no more tears, Naruchibi, Shisui whispered, placing a hand on his head. We don't hate you. Sarutobi-sama explained everything, and we know Itachi, Sai, Shin and you were just as much of a victim in Danzo's ploy as we were. Naruto nodded his head and hugged Shisui, who returned the embrace with a smile. As soon as I'm able to, I'll bring some others back. The blonde stopped when Shisui pulled him away and made him look at him. No, Naruto, as much as it pains me, I don't think it would be a good idea to bring back any more members of our clan. It would raise too much questions if someone were to ever find out. Mikado and Fugaku nodded and told him their agreements. Reluctantly, Naruto promised he wouldn't resurrect any Uchihas that his team had killed. We will continue speaking tomorrow, but right now, I believe Naruto needs to return to his apartment and get to sleep. He has a long day tomorrow. Sarutobi chuckled and ignored the glare the said boy was throwing at him, while Sai and Shin chuckled. Shisui rose an eyebrow. Is there a story to tell? Konoha's Shadow Panther is an academy student, Shin stated. The Shanshin no Shisui blinked in confusion before comprehension dawned on him and he smirked. Ah, a Nanbu being demoted to an academy student, that has never happened before. A snicker. You're the first in history to be in the bingo book while being in the academy. With that, laughter broke out. Naruto frowned, read, pout, and crossed his arms over his chest in displeasure. Laugh it up, he stated with a roll of his eye. I'm leaving, there is something I have to do before I return home. Turning and heading towards the door, he He stopped. Where will Fugaku to, Mikado Okaa and Shisui ni be staying? They are staying in the tower. And whenever Itachi reports in with his location, we will be sending the three to him. It will be better that way. At that, Naruto stiffened while the Uchihas frowned. I see. I'll take my leave now. Glancing over his shoulder he smiled at Mikoto, Shisui, and Fugaku. I'll see you tomorrow, after I get out of the academy. With that said, Naruto vanished out of the room. Naruto, what did you mean by that? The fox questioned, referring to when he made that promise to Shisui. I have another Uchiha I need to bring back. From the stories I've heard about him, he deserves a second chance at life. I'm going to bring him back for Shisui ni. He did sound like a good person, and technically you aren't breaking your promise since he wasn't a part of the Uchiha massacre. The Kyuubi broke into laughter at that. His kid was a genius in that respect. Naruto nodded his head with a smile. Of course Kyuubi. Stop calling me that, kid. Kyuubi isn't my name and I already told you to call me by name. Rolling his eyes, the blonde relented. Whatever you say, Kurama-ni. So, let's get to Graveyard 3, and make a miracle happen. With that said, Naruto vanished in a swirl of wind before reappearing in front of a grave marked Uchiha Obito and activated his eyes. Kurama, I'm going to need some of your chakra to make this work. With your chakra's healing ability, I'll be able to fully reconstruct his body and age it to match the time flow. You got it, kid? Let's do it. In an underground hidden cavern, the sounds of shouting and glass breaking echoed along the walls. What's going on? We aren't sure, Danzo-sama. One moment they were here ready to be used and the next they were missing. No one could have taken them because no one was in the room with us. A woman stated as she bowed her head to her master. Danzo glared. Get out of my sight, he hissed as he watched 5 of his trained shinobi leave the room he was in. Damn it. Years of plans, gone in a moment. What the hell happened? He scowled, knocking several papers and folders off of his desk. Fu, locate Sai and Shin for me. Tell them to get here as soon as they can get away from Sarutobi. He yelled. Yes, Danzo-sama. A voice came from outside the door. No one noticed a shadow slip from the room, transforming into a roach as it raced across the murky floors towards the exit. WTH Naruto. For several tense seconds nothing happened and Naruto frowned thinking it was a failure when a hand broke through the ground and a body rose. Uchiha Obito looked around confused. Where am I? What's going on? Welcome back to the land of the living, Obito. To be continued. Obito is the last to be revived from the Uchiha clan. He's going to play a significant role in the story. And he will be joining the others when they leave. Kakashi won't find out about Obito until later in the story when the team, minus Naruto, meets Akatsuki for the first time. And to those of you who caught it, yes, Obito is Shisui's older brother. He died when Shisui was 7 years old, 2 years before Kurama attacked the Hidden Leaf. And he will be the same age he would have been had he not been killed years prior. Kuin Hyuketsu Fuuing, time-free seal. The room which the seal is on acts similar to the hyperbolic time chamber like I stated, but unlike the chamber, a minute equals 72 hours. Think about it as a mix with Itachi's Tsukuyomi when he can torture someone for 3 days in his world where in reality only a minute has passed. It's like that. Pairings, half wants the harem, more specific they want Naruto with Itachi, Shika, and Shino. And the other half just wants Itanaru. So, I'll let you decide. A. Itachi and Naruto only. Or B. Itachi and Naruto main with Shika and Shino coming in later. Shiniko. Obito blinked and took in the sight of the village from beneath a cloak. Turning he glanced at the small blonde walking at his side and blushed a bit. The girl was really cute with hair that put the sun to shame due to its brilliance and eyes as deep as any ocean. She looked to be about the same age or maybe a bit younger than his brother was when he died. He was brought out his musing when he heard a cough. Huh. The blonde smiled and motioned to the open door. We're here. Oh. Obito responded before entering the room. Sorry. Lost in thought, you know? Naruto nodded. My name is Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto by the way. And it's been about 10 years since your death. I brought you back with my bloodline, you could say. The blonde smiled. I heard stories about you from both Kakashi-ni and Shisui-ni and figured you deserve a second chance, more than anyone else. Obito blinked. Shisui Ototo and Kakabaka, huh? Dark eyes widened when the name the girl used to introduce herself settled into his overworked mind. Wait, did you just say your name is Namikaze? As in Minato Namikaze? My sensei? Smiling, Naruto nodded his head. Yes. Your sensei and my father are one and the same. Soon the smile was replaced by a frown, and before you ask, I didn't get a chance to know him or anything. The day I was born was the same day I lost both of my parents. I grew up an orphan. Obito saddened at that. Oh, your father was a great man. You would have loved him and your mother as well. Uzumaki Kushina-chan was a force to be reckoned with, and the only person that could handle her was your father. Naruto smiled at that. That's the same thing Mikado Okaha said when I asked her about my mother. She also mentioned her being a tomboy with a fiery temper who wanted to be the first woman Hokage. Obito chuckled and nodded. Yeah, though sensei beat her out of the position, but I don't think she cared much. Hey! Naruto smiled before he looked up when a call was heard. That's Alistair, he whispered, before whistling and holding an arm out for the crow, who flew down and landed on his outstretched arm. Greetings Naruto-sama, I come bearing a letter from my master. He requested that I remain with you in case you wish to send anything back to him. Naruto nodded and motioned for Obito to follow him. After a while they reached his apartment. You can take a seat anywhere, and if you're hungry, help yourself with the food in the kitchen. I have to read this report and send out a response. Nodding in understanding, Obito entered the kitchen, while Naruto placed Alistair on his desk and took out some chocolate bars for the crow, who thanked him before he started pecking at the bars while Naruto opened the letter. Naruto-kun, a lot has happened since I left Konoha. Yes, I know it hasn't been that long, but it sure seems it has. The first day I left Konoha, I had been resting in a clearing when Orochimaru of the Sannin and Akasuna no Sasori from Suna came into the area. They had been following me, wanting to recruit me for their organization. Though cautious of their intention, especially Orochimaru's, I decided to follow them back to their base. Well, I won't go into all the details, but the name of the group is called Akatsuki. The leader is a guy named Pain and the members are 10 plus me makes an 11. Each of the members are well known as ranked criminals to their respective village, which makes me wary of trusting them. It wasn't till after I spoke with the leader and found out their goals that I became curious and sought Orochimaru out for answers. Akatsuki's goal: find and protect all the Jinchurikis from an evil organization called Kokui. I can tell they mean no harm, and it was evident when he spoke of you, though it was brief. He mentioned having a spy keeping an eye on you, so be careful, for if Akatsuki can have a spy hidden within Konoha, then so can Kokui. As for Kokui, Kokui is another organization whose sole purpose is to locate all the containers, extract their bijous, which will kill the host in the process, before unleashing the demons to destroy everyone who opposes them. In typical bad guy galore, they wish for world domination. Cliché, ni. And as for Orochimaru, he's innocent of his so-called crimes. Danzo has been playing everyone for years. He was the one doing the experiments, and when the Snake Sannin found out and went to tell Sarutobi-sama about it, Danzo had already done so, and Orochimaru was forced to take the blame for it. This will be hard for me to tell you, Naruto, but from what I already told you, I know you can warrant a guess why I decided to write to you so soon. Danzo lied about Orochimaru, and he lied about our clan as well. The Uchihas had not planned a coup. They had been innocent, and it pains me that I can't be there right now in your time of need. I wish I could, but I can't, and I just hope Sai and Shin will be enough support for you. Alistair will stay with you if you wish to write or send anything back. Itachi. Naruto took out a blank scroll along with his brush and a bottle of ink and began composing a return letter. A few minutes later, he rolled it up and placed it to the side. Rest tonight, Alistair, and you can return to Itachi tomorrow with my letter. Nodding, Alistair thanked Naruto before going back to pecking at his snacks. With a small smile and a pat on the crow's head, Naruto stood up and took the letter into his obe. Pausing, he turned to face the beautiful black bird. Hey Alistair, do you know where Itachi is staying? Is it in a village? Alistair glanced at the boy. It rains a lot, but it wasn't natural either, so I would say Amiga-core, but I'm not positive, Naruto-sama. Nodding his head, the flaxen-haired boy thanked the bird before making his way to the kitchen, only to stop and grin at the sight of Uchiha Obito covered head to toe in flour and some other things, but he couldn't make heads or tails of what it was. What Kakani says is true, you are messy. The blonde walked over with a raised brow. You're eating a sandwich, so why are you covered in flour? Obito chuckled. I tripped, sorry. But don't worry, I'll clean it up. Naruto shrugged his shoulder. Finish eating. I'll clean this mess up, and after you're finished with your sandwich you can take a shower. The bathroom is on the left, around the corner. I'll get you some spare clothes. Obito rubbed his head. No offense or anything, but I don't think I'll be able to fit in your clothes. Even when I was your age, you're so small. And besides, I don't think female clothes will look good on me. Naruto smiled and shook his head in amusement. Not mine. I have some of Kakashi's spare clothes left here. He sometimes stays with me in the guest room. And just so you know, the blonde paused, while the Obito turned to look at him. I'm a boy. Obito gaped. But, you're too pretty to be a girl. I mean, you're prettier than Rin was at your age. The Uchiha turned red as he stuttered his statement. Naruto giggled. I get that a lot. The blonde waved the older male off while he got to cleaning the mess. So it was an hour later when the duo left Naruto's apartment. Obito was hidden under a simple henge and dressed in a pair of dark blue Onbu-style pants. The ends were bandaged to hold it firmly against his ankles. The shirt was a black long sleeve with a dark green vest pulled over and zipped up. On his feet were dark blue sandals. Naruto was dressed in a black hakama, a white Monsuki haori with red hexagon patterns and a nobi the same color as the design that decorated his haori. On his feet were a pair of black ankle boots. As the two headed towards the tower, the Uchiha noticed the villagers were either glaring at the blonde or leering. Scowling, Obito knew that neither expression were appreciated, but before he could say anything, they had already arrived at the tower and Naruto was motioning him to follow. Arriving at the office and ignoring the secretary, Naruto allowed himself entry. "Hokage-sama, there is some stuff we need to talk about, but first can you send for Fugaku, Mikoto, Shisui, Sai, and Shin, if those two didn't return to Danzo?" Sarutobi blinked and nodded, "Sure, but Shin and Sai were called back by Danzo not too long ago. It seems someone broke into Danzo's base and stole something of great importance to him." Naruto hid the grin. "Oh, what a shame." The third chuckled, "Yes, what a shame." Pressing a button, Sarutobi waited until a woman in her 20s opened the door. "I want you to go to the guest quarters and tell the three that I wish to have words with them." Nodding, the woman excused herself while casting a hateful look towards the blonde before she left the room. Obito turned and frowned. "Why do people either glare at you spitefully or leer at you? You're, what, 8? Too young to have done anything bad enough to be treated with such scorn." The third turned and stared at the stranger. "And who are you? I don't believe I met you before." The Hokage narrowed his eyes. "A henge?" Raising his hand to dispel the illusion, the elderly man halted when the door opened to allow two dark green-haired males and an auburn-headed female entrance. "You wish to see us, Hokage-sama?" Mikoto spoke up. The Sandaime nodded and dismissed the secretary, telling her he didn't want to be disturbed for however long he was with these people. After she nodded and left the room, Sarutobi placed a silencing jutsu on the room before facing the stranger. "Release your henge and introduce yourself," he called out. The Uchihas released their disguises. The three known Uchihas moved towards their leader, while Fugaku and Mikoto did. Shisui headed in Naruto's direction. "It's fine," Naruto called out, stepping forward with a grin. "I know I said I wouldn't revive any other Uchihas from the massacre, and I didn't, but I did revive one from before that day." Everyone turned and stared as the henge was released. "Aniki?" Shisui whispered. Shocked was evident in his tone. Obito smiled. "Atoto-san, wow, you've grown up since the last time I've seen you." The smile was full of love and affection with a hint of sadness as well. In less than 5 seconds Shisui was in front of his long-dead brother and was hugging him while muttering how much he was missed. "I am happy to see you again, Aniki." Returning the hug, Obito just smiled. Mikoto wrapped her arms around Naruto. "You did a good thing, Naru-chan. But what made you do it? You don't even know Obito-chan." "The stories I heard from Shisui and Kakashi were enough to make up my mind. I know we will get along wonderfully if given the chance. He's someone that I want to get to know." Turning, he stared at the Hokage. "But I came for more pressing matters." Blue eyes hardened a bit, and everyone knew that the boy was serious now. "Sandaime-sama, Itachi wrote me a letter. And he knows about Danzo's treachery and it's as we suspected." Blue eyes glittered like diamonds. The third rose a brow with a frown. "About what?" "Orochimaru is innocent." With Itachi. The Uchiha heir stared at the leader before glancing towards the person beside him who smirked with a wave. "Hey!" The sharp teeth of the abnormal-looking male flashed. "So you're my partner, huh? Well, whatever, it's nice to meet you, Itachi-san. My name is Hoshigaki Kisame of the Kiri no Shinobi Gatana Nanan Shu, Uchiha Itachi." "Pleasure." He responded. "What's your story? I mean, you must have been framed or something for the crimes you were said to have committed, right?" Kisame grinned widen. "Well, I did plan a coup, but that was before finding out that the current Mizukage is actually under a very powerful genjutsu and isn't aware of what's going on, which would explain why such a even-tempered person like Yagura has become this tyrant of a man." Itachi frowned. "Yagura, isn't he the—" Pain nodded his head, already aware of what Itachi was going to say. With a smile he faced the two. "He is the Jinchuriki for the Sanbi no Kyode game, and also the Yondaime Mizukage. We have it under a very reliable source that Yagura is under hypnosis, and the only reason he isn't completely off his rocker is because his demon is trying to fight his host." "What's going to happen?" The Akatsuki leader smiled. "In a few months the both of you are going to Kiri to help break Yagura out of his genjutsu-induced insanity, and along with you too, I want you to get in touch with your pretty friend Itachi, Namikaze Naruto, or Uzumaki Naruto as people know him as. He'll be the key to you succeeding." Narrowing his eyes, Itachi stared. "How do you know that?" "Worry not, Itachi. I believe he will be able to knock Yagura back into consciousness. I know you are aware of the boy's wonderful gift. He is with people who are willing to be friends with him. Pain crossed his arms. He was aware that the Uchiha was unsure about contacting the blonde, so he had to reassure the boy, "You have nothing to fear, Itachi." I wouldn't have requested Naruto had I been unsure of his prowess. After all, I would never endanger the last link to a blood family I have left. Itachi's eyes widened at that while Kisame's jaw dropped. They couldn't believe what they just heard. Surely they didn't hear what they thought they did. "What?" Kisame yelled out. "Suzuku." To be continued. I have a poll on my profile, check it out. I'll be focusing on 2 fics at a time for faster updates, so vote for your favorite stories. Shiniko. Itachi stared blankly at the leader. He couldn't believe what he heard. Did the leader really just say that he was related to Naruto? How was that even possible? "You're related to Itachi's little friend? How?" Kisame questioned, curious and a bit confused by that revelation. Pain just smiled. "Well, if you have to know. I'm an Uzumaki as well, that is how we are related, though I don't know how just yet, but knowing you've got blood relations no matter how distant they might be is better than not having any." Naruto would really like to know he has a relative. A cousin or uncle perhaps, Itachi stated. "Would be alright to let him know when I contact him? Or is that something you wish to keep hidden?" Pain waved his hand. "It matters not to me, but it might be better if you do it face to face in a few months." The Uzumaki stated, "That way you can direct all question to me and I can explain everything to him." Itachi nodded his head. "Then that is news better left said after we free Yagura." The last thing he wanted was Naruto being distracted during a dangerous mission. Pain grunted his agreement and waved his hand. "That sounds reasonable. Start training, and make sure to keep an eye out for possible recruits, especially those with bloodline, since they are the ones being hunted. If we offer them our help we might get them as allies." Itachi and Kisame nodded their heads before leaving the office. Konohagakure no Sato Academy with Naruto. Naruto entered his class and took the same seat he had the day before. Glancing at his seatmate, the blonde smiled. "Hi Shino. How are you this morning?" Shino blinked, which went unnoticed, in surprise as he glanced at the girl. Most people tended to avoid his clan like the plague because of the bugs they carry. "I'm fine, thank you for asking. And yourself?" "That's great. And I'm alright, thanks." The blonde brushed back his bangs and grinned towards the Aburame heir. "So what do you like to do?" The heir to the bug tamer clan could do nothing but stare at the female. "Collecting new species of bugs." "And you?" Naruto nodded his head. "I like playing shogi with good opponents because I can learn a lot from them, and I also enjoy training to become a very good kunoichi." The blonde smiled. "Do you want to be friends Shino-san?" The Aburame rose a brow. "Why do you wish to be my friend, Naruto-san? You know of my clan and what we contain, so it is unwise for anyone to want to willingly be my friend, least of all, want to hang around me. It's very illogical and I don't understand your reasons." Naruto snorted, "As if I care what the prejudiced people of this village thinks. They're not my keepers and they can't tell me who I can or can't be friends with, besides the villagers aren't so fond of me as well, so it doesn't really matter." Despite being shocked and surprised, Shino nodded his head, slowly. "I see," he murmured softly. "Then I will be honored to be your friend." The Aburame stated with a small tilt of his head. Naruto grinned. "Great." Just then Iruka and Mizuki entered the room. "Alright class, sit down so we can begin lessons." Iruka's soft voice called out, which was ignored by the majority, which caused a tic to form on his temples. Taking a deep breath, Iruka performed what his class dubbed the demon head technique. "Shut the hell up, you bunch of preschool brats." The class immediately stopped talking, yelling, screaming, squealing, shrieking, and turned towards their annoyed-looking teacher. Naruto giggled at the action. "Very effective technique." Iruka-sensei uses it a lot during class since they're very ruddy, especially in the morning or when the topic is centered on Uchiha-san. The blonde hummed and nodded his head. "Suka." He smiled and leaned back in his seat. "This class is going to be very..." Two girls dashed into the class, late, while trading insults and ignoring the glare and evil aura that enveloped teacher. The kind-hearted male had a very bad-looking tick pulsating on his temple before erupting. "Sakura. Ino. The both of you sit the hell down and away from Sasuke." Naruto smiled, very. Shino glanced at his seatmate, curious. In the back of the class, Kiba started laughing before being told off by the brooding Uchiha, who did nothing but glare at the Inuzuka from the corner of his eyes, which resulted in a fight between Itachi's kid brother and Hana's little brother. Well, not really a fight. It was more like Kiba yelling threats and Sasuke uttering insults. Iruka twitched violently. "That's it, since everyone is so hyped up, we are going out to the fields and you'll be running laps," he yelled. "Everyone Iruka-sensei? Even the ones who didn't do anything? A girl whined, "That's not fair." Iruka shrugged, "Not my problem. You're all shinobi in training, so running laps every once in a while should help increase your endurance, despite your young age. Think about it this way, the enemy won't care if you are a child to them, all you are is an easier target. If you can run, you can escape from the enemy and get help from any chunin or jounin from your village." The last bit was added in as an afterthought. It wouldn't do for the kids to get an enemy shinobi to try to help them, would it? Mizuki seemed surprised by Iruka's statement but made no move to interfere. He just chuckled at the students while his comrade motioned for the kids to get up. A groan was issued followed by, "Troublesome." Naruto shook his head. "Very interesting," he whispered, standing from his seat and followed Shino from the room, inwardly pleased that he brought a change of clothes. It wouldn't sit well with him if he had to run in his kimono. Sai and Shin snickered as they watched Naruto's class arrive at the training grounds. They were currently hidden in a tree, on the highest branch, talking when they felt the blonde's presence and looked down to see a class of 8-year-olds with 2 chunin. "I wonder what they're doing?" Shin whispered and waved when a pair of blue eyes connected with his own. "And it seems our captain is aware that we're here." Sai nodded his head. "So it seems." "All right class, what I want you to do is run from here, to the lake and back for as long as you can." Iruka pointed towards the pool of water less than half a mile away. "Any questions?" Naruto rose his hand. "Yes, I have one, Iruka-sensei." Iruka blinked and nodded his head. "All right, and what is it you want to ask Naruto?" "I can't really run in my kimono, but I did bring extra clothes to change should the need arise, so I wondered if perhaps you would allow me a moment to switch outfits." The class glanced at the elegantly constructed kimono and saw what the blonde meant. "Yes, of course. Go on." Naruto smiled and nodded. "Thank you." He responded, making his way towards an empty clearing for privacy while the rest of the class mingled while they waited for the blonde to return. Several minutes later, Naruto returned dressed in a long-sleeve skin-tight black fishnet shirt with a black belly shirt and black shorts. His long blonde hair was pulled into a ponytail, a charcoal-colored ribbon holding the locks back in a loose tie. In his arms folded neatly, was his kimono which he placed on top of his bag. "I'm ready." Iruka nodded and told the class to get started. Obito glanced out of the window and sighed, "It's wrong. How can anyone think someone like Naruto, who's so kind-hearted, could be anything so monstrous, and from what you said, Kyuubi isn't even the demon people make him out to be." Mikoto nodded, "We agree with you, Obito, and there's only a small portion of people who actually thinks like we do. Most of them are shinobi that should know the difference between the sealed item and the scroll." When we were walking here, I witnessed the hate-filled whispers and jeers directed at Naruto. I would bet anything Minato-sensei would be pissed as all hell if he was still here to see how much the village has fallen. A scowl twisted the usually fun-loving and goofy Uchiha's lips. He never condoned violence, especially when it was aimed at children, innocent ones at that. Everyone nodded their heads. They were all made painfully aware of that fact when the calm, sweet and caring Minato changed after witnessing several village and shinobis alike harassing Kakashi after what occurred with the boy's father. After that day people tended to stay on the Namikaze's good side. "So what are we to do?" Shisui questioned. "It'd get boring staying here all day." The younger Uchiha crossed his arms over his chest. The Sandaime smiled. "It can't be helped. Until Itachi displays his location, you have to stay here. And before you ask, we can't risk you walking around in a henge in case it would be seen through. Obito is the only one who no one will recognize because he died at 13, 10 years ago. And the only real threat to his identity being discovered is from Kakashi." Shisui groaned, "This is going to suck." Naruto entered his apartment and set his bag by the door. Blue eyes turned towards the table and smiled upon seeing Alistair perched upon one of the books. "You're still here." Alistair nodded once. "I wanted to make sure you had nothing else to tell Itachi same, or give to him, beside this letter." The crow tilted his head and cawed. "No, I wrote everything I wanted to ask in the letter, but thanks for staying, Alistair." With a nod, the crow flapped his wings and took off. XXX. Kit. Naruto blinked. "Kuramani, what is it?" "Come in here, Kit." Despite being confused, Naruto sat in a lotus position and closed his eyes. Within seconds he was deep within his subconscious, standing in front of Kurama, Senbonzakura, Benihime, and Hirinmaru. "What's up?" "We figure it was time you learn how to use your Zanpakuto," Benihime stated with a small smile. "You will first learn to harness the power of Senbonzakura, then I will work with you, followed by Hirinmaru. During that time you will also be learning Kido, Hakuto, and Shunpo. You'll also be learning the mechanics to using your Shinigami." Naruto smiled. "All right." He nodded. "I can't wait. So when do we start?" Hidden behind the mask, a smile formed on the samurai's lips. "Now." The man responded, "Come with me, Naruto, and we'll get started." "All right." The blonde turned and followed the armored male, unaware of the fond smiles the other three directed at his back. Kirigakure no Sato, Mizukage Tower. A man, who, for all purposes, resembled a teenager, grunted as pale hands gripped his hair. "What's going on?" a soft voice asked, voice laced with pain. "San-B, what's happening?" "Worry not Yagura-sama, everything will be fine." The gruff sound of the Kyode game rang through the pain-filled head of the Yondaime Mizukage. "And once you're back to normal we can hunt the bastards who hurt us down and teach them a lesson they would never forget." Yagura screamed and tightened the hold he had on his hair. Pain like nothing he ever felt before, pierced through his head, like 1,000 flaming needles. It hurt to even breathe. The last thing he heard before darkness claimed him was San-B's frantic calls. "Suzuku." To be continued. "Well, I didn't really plan to have the Yagura part, but it works." A short introduction of San-B and the Yondaime Mizukage and what's going on with them. As you can tell, this fic won the voting, so I'll update this one when I'm able to. On another note, pairings, I've decided that it will just be Itanaru with Shino and Shika being very close friends, like Sai and Shin are. I apologize to those who wanted the harem. I'll write another fic, probably a one-shot with Shikanaru and Shinonaru. And to those of you who asked, Naruto is definitely the Yuke in the relationship. I don't see him as a semi at all. But that doesn't mean he's going to make it easy. I can't see him submitting without a fight. Shiniko. It's been nearly 3 months since what remained of the Uchiha clan, sans Sasuke, left Konoha under the cover of night and headed towards Ame to meet up with Itachi and the rest of the Akatsuki. Naruto had been upset to see them leave but was nonetheless happy that Itachi would have his family with him and he knew they would look out for him. "Naruto!" a voice yelled, "a letter arrived for you." Turning, the blonde boy glanced at Shin, who grinned while Sai smiled from beside the silver-haired boy. "Alistair arrived while you were still in class." Sai saw him circling and called for him. "We didn't know how much longer you were going to be and knew you wouldn't want Alistair to stay airborne." Shin explained, "The letter is in the Hokage's office." It was then that the two pseudo-Nihonbus saw two brown-haired boys standing beside their captain, and blinked in surprise. "Who's your friends?" Naruto smiled, "The lazy-looking one is Nara Shikamaru and the other one with the shades is Aburame Shino." The flaxen-haired boy introduced, "Shika, Shino, these are 2 of the 6 friends I mentioned. Shin is the silverish gray-haired boy and the other is Sai. You most likely won't meet the others because they're shinobis already and are always out on long-term missions." The blonde sighed. Shikamaru and Shino nodded their heads in greeting while Sai gave a small wave and Shin grinned. "It's nice to meet the 2 of you. There isn't much people who can match Nara-chan in intellect. There's only been 2 others, and one is a lot older than her and the other is just a few years older." "Yeah. She's a Genuous." Sai screamed amused, as if there was some joke that only he was aware of. "We should get together someday and get to know each other better. After all, any friends of Nara-chan is a friend of ours as well, right Shin?" Shin nodded his head. "That's right. It's regrettable that we can't do it today, but Naruto-chan needs to get to the Hokage's office to receive her letter. It could be really important." Shino and Shikamaru nodded in understanding before uttering their goodbyes, which were echoed by the 3 undercover Anbu members. As soon as the Aburame and Nara was out of sight, Naruto, Shin and Sai disappeared using a sunshine to reappear within the Hokage's office. "A letter from Itachi?" Naruto questioned, and upon getting the nod, he reached forward and plucked the envelope off the Hokage's desk and opened it. "Naruto, I know it's been a while since my last letter, and I apologize. It's been very busy on this side since Otosan, Okasan, Shisui and Obito arrived. And before you ask, they are doing fine. This letter is written in regards to that mission I told you about a few months prior, the one in Kiri. The leader said we need to move out soon, so in 3 weeks I need you to meet up with us at Danzakugai and we'll head towards Kiri together. Sai and Shin are welcome to come along since Shisui and Obito will be accompanying us as well. I'm looking forward to seeing how strong you've gotten, Naruto. With regards, Uchiha Itachi. Team Elements, Q Uketsuki no Karasu. XXX. Naruto blinked and looked towards the Hokage. "It's a lot sooner than we thought it would be." Chewing on his lower lip, the blonde glanced out the window. "But I'm ready. I won't let Itachi down." Turning, blue eyes stared at Shin and Sai. "And you 2 are coming?" Sharing a glance, the 2 nodded their heads. "Of course, this will be the first time in 6 months that Anbu Team Element will be together," Shin exclaimed. "Yes, everyone must have forgotten us by now. So it's about time we remind them why we were feared." Sai smiled cheerfully. "And with Itachi leading us, it'll be a reunion to remember. And Kiri is a good enough place to start." Naruto smiled and nodded his head. "I can't wait to be reunited with Itachi, Mikoka, Fugawatu, Shini and Obini, as well as meeting these Akatsuki members. They seem interesting from what Shisui and Obito wrote. Yes, especially Datara and Sasori, Sai stated with a grin. I can't wait to meet them and exchange tips to better my art. Shin shook his head. From what he remembered, Sasori and Datara always fought over what type of art is better, and now with Sai added to the mix, well, instead of two art freaks arguing about which type of art is better, there will be three of them. He groaned at the mere thought of what's to come. I somewhat doubt that. Sai opened his mouth to ask him what he meant but stopped, when Naruto asked if they wanted to get some practice in. Nodding, the three bowed towards the Hokage, excusing themselves before leaving. Timeskip. 3 weeks passed rather quickly for the young boys, and before they knew it, they were already departing from the village, heading towards Danzakugai to meet up with Itachi and the others. Each of them were decked out in their Anbu uniform and their mask attached to their face. The only difference was the weapon they carried. Sai had a tanto held to the middle of his back, Shin had a sickle with chains held to his side, and Naruto had Hirinmaru was strapped across his back and Senbonzakura at him waist, while Benihime was tied at his lower back. Naruto smiled. He could successfully use Senbonzakura's Shikai and call upon his Bankai, but his control needed a lot more work, but it would do for now. He could also use several Kido spells as a fallback just in case none of his jutsus work on Yagura. Though he hadn't mastered his Shinigami yet, he could at least use the resurrection spell to bring back his friends should they fall. Danzakugai came into view, revealing several shadowed figures. Upon getting closer, Naruto's smile brightened and he picked up speed. "Itachi!" he called out, tackling the Uchiha Genuis to the ground. "I missed you so much. And I'm very pleased to see you well." Itachi smiled and patted the boy's blonde hair. "I'm pleased to see you too, Naruto." He glanced towards Sai and Shin and nodded his head in greeting, "And the both of you as well." Shin and Sai returned the greeting and smiled at their captain, or was he their former captain? With shrugs they turned towards the others that were present. Uchiha Shisui and Obito, Kisame, Datara, and Sasori. At the sight of the last two, Sai grinned and walked over. Shin shook his head. He knew what was coming as soon as his friend headed towards the redhead and the blonde. "What do you mean, UN?" Datara screamed, glaring at Sai. "Art is fleeting, you make it, then blow it up." Sasori shook his head. "You're wrong, Datara. Art needs to be preserved so it lasts long into the future." The calm, monotone voice of the puppet user disagreed. Datara frowned. "Sasori Dana, you're wrong, Kisame groaned and told the two to shut up about their stupid art, which caused all three artists to turn towards the shark like Akatsuki member and began yelling at him due to his disrespect of art. Itachi shook his head and glared at his amused cousins. Sometimes he worried about them. Obito he could understand since the man died when he was 13, still a child, so he most definitely still retained his childish side, but Shisui had time to grow up. Or maybe it was genetic. It would explain why the brothers were so alike. Naruto smiled, greeting Shisui and Obito before turning towards the quartet with a sigh. "Really, I can understand Sai yelling, but for three of the older ones to be doing so too." Naruto shook his head. "All right, knock it you guys. We are supposed to be heading into Kiri to help save Yagura-sama from that illusion he's trapped in." The blonde called out. Sai, upon hearing his friend, stopped and took a step back and faced the smaller male with an apologetic bow of his head. Shin smiled and patted his partner's back. Itachi, Shin, Sai and Shisui took several steps back, the latter Uchiha dragging his brother back as well. It was never a good thing to upset Naruto, and the three Akatsuki members were doing just that when they ignored the blonde's earlier statement. With a twitching brow, Naruto rose his hand towards the three older males and smirked. Bakudo number 4, Hinawa. Yellow energy ropes shot out of Naruto's hands and entangled themselves around Kisame, Datara and Sasori, effectively shutting them up and immobilizing them. "Now that I've got your attention," he shot them each glares, "it would be wise to rest a bit because the status in Kiri is unknown. We might have to jump into the fight straight away." Itachi nodded his head. "His right, you know. After we leave here you won't know the next time a break will be offered, so use it well." Black eyes narrowed. "Check your equipment and make sure you have everything you need, and if you don't, then get inside the village and purchase what you need." Chastised, the Akatsuki trio nodded their heads. Naruto released the ropes from Kisame, Datara and Sasori, allowing them to check their belonging. Shisui and Obito smiled and told them that they were going to get some food. The others sans Itachi and Naruto followed. Naruto giggled and turned to look at Itachi, who was shaking his head mumbling something about too young to be a father. "So what was that attack you used on Kisame, Sasori and Datara?" "Oh, it's one of those Kido spells I was telling you about in one of the letters I wrote to you. The one I used is classified as a Bakudo, a binding spell which is used to immobilize an opponent's arms and body." Itachi hummed thoughtfully. "That one will come in handy. What else do you know how to use?" "Not much." The blonde pouted. I can only use 4 Bakuto spells, 4 Hado spells and 1 barrier spell effectively. Naruto crossed his arms, and out of my 3 Zanpakuto, I can only use Senbon Sakura right now. Itachi smiled, "That's good Naruto. Remember you only found out about these abilities a couple of months ago, and for you to get as far as you did, it's to be applauded and I'm very proud of your achievement." Naruto grinned. He was always pleased when Itachi complimented him. It gave him a warm and bubbly feeling. "Thank you Ida-chan," he chirped. It was near nightfall when the group arrived at Karagakure and met by the rebel leader, a tall, muscular man with pale skin. His black hair was short and spiky. His brown eyes glittered with an unknown emotion. Covering the lower half of his face was white bandages. Tied sideways on his head was his forehead protector. His choice of wardrobe caused the group to raise an eyebrow at. He was shirtless, with his chest only covered by a belt, and attached to it was a giant sword. His lower halter was covered by a pair of baggy pants with a striped pattern and wrist warmers extending up to his elbows, with matching leg warmers. Beside him was what appeared to be a girl, but Naruto knew that the pseudo-female was in fact a male, a very pretty one at that, with long black hair, pale skin and large, dark brown eyes. He had a slender build, dressed in a moss green, striped, turtleneck sweater and a split skirt in the same color, that reached down to his knees. It wasn't hard to mistake him for a female, but the group could, having spent time with Naruto. "You must be the backup from Akatsuki?" The gruff voice of the man questioned, eyeing the G-tube. "You're a bunch of children," he sighed. "Either Akatsuki is underestimating Yagura or you're very strong despite your age." "Shut up Zabuza, beside I can vouch for them." Zabuza narrowed his eyes and turned towards the figure decked out in a black cloak with red clouds, and an umbrella hat concealed his face from view. "Who are you?" he sneered, eyes glaring. A chuckle. "Why Zabuza, I'm hurt that you don't even remember your own partner." A hand rose and removed the hat to reveal his face. "Kisame." Zabuza would have gawked if he was the type to. He hadn't expected his former comrade to be here. After all, he hadn't heard anything about the shark-like man since he left Kiri. "Hey!" Naruto shook his head and walked towards the feminine male standing beside Zabuza. "Hi, name's Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. Yours?" Momochi Haku the brunette smiled. "It's very nice to meet you Naruto-san, and it's nice to know I'm not the only effeminate male dressed as the opposite gender." Naruto giggled and ran his slim fingers through his hair. "Yeah. It's fun though, right? Deceiving people into thinking you're something that you're not." Haku nodded. "Their reactions are priceless." "Oh, these are my best friends, Ryuzuki Sai, Ichinomiya Shin, Uchiha Itachi, Shisui, and Obito. The other, slightly feminine blonde is Datara, the redhead is Sasori, and Shark Boy is Kisame." Haku smiled. "Nice to meet everyone and thank you for assisting us." He bowed his head in gratitude. Everyone said that Yagura-sama lost his mind, or that the Sanbi has finally decided to possess his host, and that's why the Ondaime Mizukage is insane. Naruto frowned. People are always ready to place blame with no evidence to back up their claim. The blonde lips curled. "I'll definitely save Yagura-sama, and everyone will have to owe him and Isabu-sama an apology." Upon hearing the unfamiliar name, everyone blinked and stared at the blonde with questioning gazes, wondering who this Isabu was and who he was addressed as such. Naruto, who is Isabu-sama?" Shisui called out when it became apparent that Naruto wasn't going to elaborate. Naruto blinked in confusion. "You don't know?" He raised a brow. A smile curled his lips. Isabu-sama is the Sanbi. You are aware that despite what everyone might say, the Baijus do have names, right? So Isabu-sama is the Sanbi?" Haku repeated. Naruto gave a nod of his head. "Just like the Kyuubi's name is Kurama." The blonde shook his head. "I can't believe people would actually accuse Isabu-sama of being cruel. He's actually not, you know." Naruto tilted his head to the side. "Kurama told me stories about his siblings, said Isabu was always shy and addressing himself as Boku." Haku smiled. "How adorable, like a little boy." "Hey!" More of a reason to break Yagura-sama from that genjutsu is trapped within. As the three effeminate males began a conversation with each other, the others just watched in silence, not caring or knowing what to say. Well, except for Kisame and Zabuza, who were exchanging insults and reminiscing about their shared past. "Okay." Shisui exhaled. "What should we do?" Itachi glanced at his cousin, then turned towards Zabuza with furrowed brows. "Zabuza-san, perhaps it would be a good idea to head towards your hideout. It's not safe to stay out in the open, is it? Especially if there is spies around. You don't want anyone to know that you've got backups, do you? Especially not when it's Jinchuriki." Kisame grinned. A startled gasp was heard and everyone turned towards the sound, only to see a young man with pale golden eyes and shoulder-length black hair, a large portion of which concealed the left side of his face. He was dressed in a gray long-sleeve shirt, a flak jacket, and a pair of black pants. Pulled over the outfit was a long light blue kimono robe with an orange obi tied loosely around his waist. On the back of the robe was a small emblem of 3 bubbles. A Jinchurik. He exclaimed. Zabuza cursed slightly and glared at Kisame before turning towards the dark-haired Kirinin. Utakata, don't do anything rash, they're here to help us free your friend from his imprisonment. Utakata slanted a glance towards Zabuza before returning his stare at the boy who could not be older than 8 at most, a Jinchuriki. He repeated, looking for a confirmation. Yes. Naruto nodded his head, shifting into a defensive position, and from the corner of his eye, he saw Itachi and the others settle into a loose stance, ready to help Naruto if it was needed. My name is Namikaze Naruto, and I am the Jinchuriki for the Nine-Tailed Fox, Kurama. Utakata nodded, a smile forming on his lips. And I have Seiken, the Six-Tailed Slug. It's nice to meet you, Naruto-kun. The name's Utakata. Naruto mumbled and stood straight. So you'll help me with Yagura-sama, ni? The blonde hummed with the 15-year-old gave his agreement. Anyways, back to what Itachi was saying before Kisame's blunder. We really should get to your hideout. Haku voiced his agreement and urged the group to follow him while Zabuza murmured several choice words under his breath about how no one listens to him despite the fact that he's the rebel leader. This isn't a rebellion, Zabuza-san. Naruto turned to look at the imposing figure of the mist assassin. It's a rescue mission. And we're going to save Yagura-sama and Seiken-sama no matter who stands in our way. Zabuza blinked, then grinned maniacally. For a brat, you've got guts. The mist demon stated. He's an Anbu for a reason, Zabuza. Itachi intoned, turning to look at the man. One of the best Konoha has to offer. Sai and Shin nodded their heads in agreement. You must have wondered why our Hokage would send kids to fight in a war? Shin called out. It's because he knew despite our age, we are the best choice to send to help, and not only because Naruto has Kurama but because we are a team. We've been together for a long time, fought together, killed together, bled together, hell we even cried together. We know everything about each other inside out and how to cover each other's weaknesses. Sai smiled. We are Konoha no Gagyo Kijin. Suzuku. To be continued. Kyu Uketsuki no Karasu. Blood-sucking, vampire, crow. Konoha no Gagyo Kijin, 5-element demon of Konoha. Their team moniker. Each of the members are able to utilize 2 or more of the elements and combine them, thus we're given this nickname. More will be explained in later chapters. Shiniko. Jutsus were being tossed and countered. Explosions rang out loudly, closely followed by a loud cackle from Deidara, who was having way too much fun blowing up his clay birds. Ink Beast charged, attacking the force who dared to oppose their creator. The clashing sounds of metal on metal echoed across the battlefield. Bodies, enemy and ally alike, were littered the blood-stained ground. Death plunged heavily in the air but was ignored as the fighting content. Glanced around, Itachi made sure everyone he knew was alive and safe from danger. The only one he couldn't check up on was the one currently not present, but he trusted Utakata enough to protect and look after Naruto. Seeing a sword making its way towards his head, Itachi ducked below the swing and stabbed his would-be assassin in the chest with his kunai. You okay over there, Itachi? You look distracted. Blinking, the Uchiha heir glanced at his partner and nodded his head. I'm fine, Kisame, thanks for asking. I was just making sure everyone was alright. Kisame gave a nod. Understood. I'll keep an eye on them as well, especially the kids. The shark-like shinobi flashed a smile, revealing a mouthful of sharp and dangerous-looking teeth. Itachi nodded his head and got his head back into the fight going on. He had to make sure the battle fell in their favor. Nothing else mattered but their victory. The future of Kirigakure and Mizuno Kuni depended on them being able to free Yagura, after all. So they had to win. Speeding across the ground, Naruto and Utakata avoided the battle that was waging on either side of them. After all, their job was to locate Yagura and break him out of whatever illusion he was in. In here, Utakata called out, grabbing Naruto's hand and tugging the boy into a side entrance into the Mizukage Tower where they were sure Yagura was holed up in. Dashing up the stairs, Utakata motioned to the room at the end of the corridor. Upon entering the room, the two stopped, eyes wide in surprise. They should have expected something like this to happen. After all, a shinobi should always expect the unexpected, right? Yagura smiled. Well, if a cruel twist of the lips could be qualified as a smile, that is. The usual kind yet apathetic face was replaced by something dark. If a word had to be used to describe the expression, it would be maniacal, and it sent cold shivers shooting up and down the other two Jinchuriki's backs. I knew you would attack today, so I took the necessary safeguard to ensure I leave this place in one piece. There is still a lot of work to be done and I can't make sure it's complete if I allow you to kill me so early in the game. Now can I? A smirk curled the Cage's lips as he glanced towards the shadowed corner. Attempting to assassinate a Cage, especially in his own home, well, that's grounds for an immediate execution. Right. The possessed fourth grinned. It's a shame I don't have any use for you. If you were a Jinchuriki then you'd be safe, but since you aren't, well. At that Utakata and Naruto shared a confused glance, not understanding what their fellow Jinchuriki, though not himself, was talking about. Utakata leaned over, his lips brushing against Naruto's ear. I don't think he actually know who contains demons, and seeing as Kurama-sama was sealed in Hai no Kuni, he wouldn't expect his container to be in Mizu no Kuni much less Karagakour. His whispered words were heard by none but the one it was intended for. Yagura waved his arm. Kill them both. At that order, 20 or so guards swarmed the room, each wielding some type of blade as they attacked. In the chaos, Yagura ran right past them. Go Naruto, I'll handle these guys. You try to get Isabu-sama to possess Yagura-sama long enough so you can break whatever it is that binds him. The 8-year-old glanced towards the Rakubi Jinchuriki, unsure if he should do what he was told. He trusted Utakata and knew he was strong enough to take out the group, especially with Seiken-sama aiding him, but he also knew it only took one mistake and even the strongest will fall. If I let you take care of these small fry, you have to promise me that you'll be alright. After all, you're a friend of Yagura-sama and I know he'll be hurt if he found out his friend was killed because he ordered it so. The blonde child crossed his arms, eyes narrowed, seriousness reflecting within the blue depths. Utakata smiled with a nod. Don't worry about me, kid. I'll be just fine, and there will be no way I'll let Yagura-sama shoulder the burden of my death, so there is no need to worry about that. Besides, Seiken-sama won't allow anything to harm me. Naruto nodded. Alright. I'll deal with the possessed Mizukage, while you take care of them and then meet back up with me after you're finished. Of course. And do watch your back, alright. You have some very powerful friends and even with Seiken-sama, I don't think I'd survive against them should they decide to get revenge because I let you face whoever that is, alone. Naruto shook his head, a smile playing on his lips. Now go. Utakata grinned, watching as the younger boy ran from the room in search of the missing in action fourth Mizukage. Good luck, Naruto. His whispered words drifted to the said boy's ears, causing a spark of determination to ignite. Heads up, Naruto, I can fell Isabu up ahead. Taking Kurama's warning to heart, Naruto placed his hand on the hilt of Senbonzakura, never once slowing his pace down. Hey Kurama-ni, any ideas how to get Isabu-sama to temporarily take control over Yagura-sama? You have to weaken Isabu's host first. As soon as the body is weak the mind will surely follow and that's when you strike. Naruto nodded his head. This is going to be the longest and most fiercest battle you've fought yet, Naruto. You need to be prepared for anything. And assume that whoever is controlling Yagura can use Isabu's chakra as well. Irinmaru whispered. The blonde gave another nod and slowed his run. He's here. Naruto glanced around. Who are you? And why are you controlling Yagura-sama? When no answer came, Naruto narrowed his eyes. I know you're here, so there's no use hiding any longer. A chuckle, cold and unbelievably insane, sounded from the corner causing Naruto to spin on his heels, hair flying behind him and blue eyes trained on the Mizukage. It's interesting that you, a child, could sense that the Mizukage was being controlled when those twice your age couldn't. Taking a step closer, pink pupilless eyes narrowed. You're not an ordinary child, are you? Who are you? Naruto sneered. That's none of your business, now is it? Release Yagura-sama, he commanded, tightening his grip on the hilt of Senbonzakura. Not on your life, child. The flaxen-haired boy grinned. I knew you'd say that. Drawing his blade, Naruto tilted his head back. Prepare to lose then. I won't allow you to keep controlling Yagura-sama and Isabu-sama. With that said, Naruto took a step forward, his sword held out in front of him. Chiri, Senbonzakura. At the command, the blade within the blonde's hold scattered into 1,000 tiny blade-like petals. Swinging the bladeless hilt, Naruto watched calmly as the petals shot forward, slicing into the pale skin of Yagura. Naruto shook his head. This is going to be a long fight. Shikamaru and Shino stared at the Hokage in shock. So Naruto is in Ame visiting family? The lazy genius repeated with a raised brow. Did Sai and Shin go with her? Sandaime smiled. Yes, they did. They should be back by next month at the latest. Iruka-sensei knows. Yes? Shino's impassive voice cut into whatever Shikamaru was going to say. He didn't seem all that concerned with her inattendance, even though he has a habit of jumping to conclusion when someone is missing from class. Sarutobi nodded with a hum. I told Iruka that Naruto was leaving for a while. The old Hokage grinned at the young shinobi in training. It's nice to see Naruto getting along with his classmates. Shikamaru and Shino stared at their leader in surprise. Eyebrows rose. Did you just say his Hokage-sama? Sarutobi blinked in confusion, inwardly cursing at his big mouth. No, of course not. Why would I call Naruto a he when she's a her? Shikamaru and Shino narrowed their eyes. A thoughtful frown marring the former's countenance as he stared at the elderly leader, unbelieving. Naruto is a boy, cross-dressing as a girl, Shikamaru stated, an eyebrow raised, while Shino inclined his head in agreement to that lazy shinobi in training statement. The Sandaime sighed and hunched his shoulder, damn you Nara men. Too smart for your own good. With a resigned expression, Sarutobi leaned back in his chair, eyes focused on the two 9-year-olds. Yes, Naruto is really a boy cross-dressed as a girl, and before you ask, yes Naruto does it because he wants to. Placing his hand on the table, the third frowned. When he was young several kunoichis saw how beautiful he is and will become with how feminine he looked, so they took him in. Several of the kunoichis taught him the female arts. Seduction, flower arranging and all of that lovely things that only those of the fairer gender can pull off. Shikamaru looked horrified, so Naruto was basically trained to be a kunoichi? Yes, something like that. It was nearly half a year later that several high-leveled shinobis found out what was going on and they took Naruto back, but by then, it was already too late. Naruto had a thing for the feminine arts. Shikamaru and Shino sat frozen, shocked that their friend was not a girl, but was raised to be one. Twisting around, the Hokage looked out the window with furrowed brows. Hopefully Naruto wouldn't be too upset about finding out two people knew his secret. A blood-curdling scream caused everyone to stop what they were doing and turned in the direction the sound came from. Everyone froze at the sight that met their eyes. Disbelief and fear clung to their very souls, heart beating wildly against their chest. No, a whispered plea escaped Shin's trembling lips. Not too far from where they were fighting, an 8-year-old blonde boy was skewered upon what appeared to be a staff or a pole. Even with the distance, Itachi could see runes written in ink, manifest themselves all over Naruto's body, and appear to be moving. Sliding across his body and towards the weapon protruding from the blonde's chest, twisting around the pole to attach themselves to Yagura's body. A smile appeared on Naruto's lips, as he was tossed to the ground, raising a hand. The onlookers saw that the boy was holding a seal. They were unsure of what he did, but whatever it was it caused Yagura's body to freeze. A pain-filled howl echoed around the now silent battlefield as all attention was focused on the possessed Mizukage and the blonde child. Several heartbeats later a blue-green colored chakra surged forward. Naruto-sama, do it now. The light sound of Isabu's voice was heard, you need to free Yagura-sama now. With a nod, Naruto pulled out the pole from his body, summoning forth the red chakra belonging to the feared nine-tailed fox, as it poured out of his small body in waves, connecting and immersed the Mizukage in its inflaming energy. Screams of absolute pain poured from Yagura's throat. Black billowing smoke steadily rose from the writhing form of the fourth Mizukage. After what seemed like a lifetime, the scream finally ended and the red chakra recited, and pink eyes opened. Naruto sat, hunched over and heaving, sweat dripped from his forehead as he eyed the once possessed man with half-lidded glazed eyes. He hoped it worked. If not, he was screwed. He couldn't fight any longer. What's going on? A soft raspy voice questioned. Pink pupilless eyes eyed the blonde in confusion. Who are you? What's going on? Naruto smiled and closed his eyes. Maybe you should speak with Isabu-sama, Yagura-sama. He will have all the answers to the questions that plague your mind. Doing as asked, the gray-haired man closed his eyes and contacted his inner demon. Naruto. Several yells rang out, as figures appeared on the roof. Naruto, are you alright? Itachi wrapped his arms around the boy and brought him close to his chest. Hands roaming the small body, checking for any injuries, and was happy to note that the wound in his chest was healed along with any small cuts that would have littered the boy's body. I'm fine, Naruto whispered, a small smile graced his lips. I'm glad to see that you all made it out alive and well. Blue eyes glanced towards the door as it was slammed open allowing the container of seiken to enter. Utakata ran towards Naruto in worry. Are you alright Naruto? I tried to finish those bastards as fast as I could, but like annoying insects often do, they seemed to multiply. No matter how much I took out, 5 more eyes in place of that one, so you can only imagine how annoying that was. The 15-year-old ran a hand through his hair, but a few seconds ago, they seemed to stop, which was strange. Naruto furrowed his brows. Maybe they were just illusions made by the person controlling Yagura-sama. Did you see any billowing black smoke come from the bodies? Yeah, actually. Utakata nodded. How'd you know? The Konoha group and the Akatsuki gang remained in Kiri for 2 months to help them rebuild and help Yagura get the village back to how it was before he was taken over by whatever it was that had controlled him. And in those 2 months, Naruto became close friends with Haku, having a lot of things in common, being mistaken for girls, cross-dressing as one, how they are both orphans and were hated for what they could not control. Yagura and Utakata were also quite fond of the blonde. The former was grateful for the young Jinchuriki's help, and vowed that he'd do anything to keep the child safe, no matter the cost. But a few days ago, the group left Kiri and were now making their way towards Amigakura on the excuse that Naruto should visit Mikado and Fugaku since he was outside of the village. Naruto had agreed with no hesitation. "Hey Itachi-san, don't you think you should tell the Gaki the real reason we are heading towards Amigakura?" Itachi nodded his head and glanced towards the group. They were pretty close to Amigakura, so now would be a good time to inform Naruto about Pain's identity and his relation to the leader of the organization, Akatsuki. "HN. Naruto, stay back for a bit, alright. I want to talk to you about something. The rest of you go ahead. Amigakura is just beyond the trees, Kisame will take you." With a nod, the shark-like shinobi led the rest of the group away, while Naruto stared at his best friend in curiosity. "What is it, Itachi-kun?" Itachi furrowed his brows. "Well, there's something I wanted to tell you but decided to wait until after we freed Kiri to tell you." A short pause. "Pain, the leader of Akatsuki is actually a man named Uzumaki Nagato." "Damn it!" a voice screamed, tossing a table against a wall. "Who the fuck was that brat? How the hell does he have the power to overthrow me from the Mizukage's body? What the hell was that red chakra that blonde menace utilized? I want answers and you will provide them." A man hidden by the shadow demanded. "Of course, master." A woman replied hastily. A man covered in a green cloak stepped forward. "There is something else you should be aware of, master. The few spies that were still planted within Kiri got a missive out before they were killed." "Well, what is it?" "They don't know who the kid is, but they made it quite clear that he was strong for a child, possibly a prodigy, and he created a seal that would keep certain types of people out of Kiri. So trying to infiltrate the village is useless, especially since we aren't sure what the seal does or what kinds of people it will deflect." An angry snarl was heard. "I want that brat brought here. Find out everything you can about him. His name, his family, anything." "Yes, master." With that said, the room cleared out, leaving only this master. Everything was silent for a while before the sound of glass shattering echoed in the room. "I was so close in conquering Kirigakura and Mizuno Kuni. Damn it." Hands fisted, and red eyes flashed. "I will have those demons and the nations will tremble at my feet." A blood-chilling laugh reverberated around the room. "Suzuku." To be continued. "So I decided to introduce the main antagonist, only briefly. I'm not too good at fight scenes, so I decided to just skip over all the fighting." "Shika and Shino knows that Naru is a boy, why you ask?" "Because I thought it would make things interesting, Naru trying to keep his gender hidden and the aforementioned duo trying to hide the fact that they know his secret." Shiniko. Amigakura was rainy. That was the first thought that entered Sai and Shin's minds upon entering the village. They assumed it rained a lot, but they've been in Ame for nearly 2 weeks and it was still raining. It wasn't the kind where it would rain, then stop, then pick up again. No, it rained all day, every day. It was unnatural. Nagato really seems to care for Naruto a lot. Sai smiled and nodded his head. "Yeah, it's a nice change from the usual hostile care the Konoha villagers, sans those who generally cared for Naruto, treat him." "And Mikado's been on cloud 9 since we appeared. I guess she missed Naruto lots." Shin grinned. Shaking his head, the dark-haired boy crossed his arms. "Ha, that and she missed dressing him up in all those dresses." He snickered in amusement. "Our poor gender-confused friend, he's going to have a lot of problems when he gets older." Shin laughed. "Itachi will love that, to have Naruto prance around in a maid outfit." The gray-haired boy grunted when he felt a throb on his head, and glanced over his shoulder. "I heard that, Shin, and I'm not amused." Blue eyes glared at the gray-haired youth before turning to give Sai the same treatment. "And I'm not gender-confused, Sai. I just happen to like cross-dressing. Pissing the girls off and driving the boys crazy is very amusing, plus it's fun to see the adults look constipated whenever their sons would praise me." Naruto snickered, while Sai and Shin rolled their eyes with identical grins. "And I wouldn't be talking about gender confusion if I were you, Sai. If you haven't noticed, you wear belly shirts and thigh-high, skin-tight, shorts." A smooth voice cut in. Leaning against the door frame was Itachi, his arms folded against his chest, right leg crossed over his left, and an amused smile curled his lips. Turning, he glanced towards Naruto. "You spent many days with Pain-sama, what do you think about him?" "He's amazing." Naruto smiled. "I can't believe he's doing everything for a bunch of strangers that he doesn't even know, protecting public enemy number 1, aka the Jinchuriki, from some hellbent organization wishing nothing more than world domination." Itachi nodded. "Pain-sama cares a lot about you despite never meeting you before. It's like they said, blood is thicker than water, and I know the leader will make sure no one harms you." Naruto smiled. "I know." The 8-year-old plopped himself down on the couch. "Anyways, Nagato and I talked about a lot of things during the week, mostly about what his mother used to tell him about the Uzumaki clan. He said that we might have another relative out there somewhere. Really? Sai and Shin questioned while Itachi rose a curious brow. Naruto made a sound of approval. Nagato's mom told him when he was younger that out of an entire clan that populated Uzoshiogakuer, that only 3 people were able to escape the genocide. My mother, Nagato's mom, and a man. He believes that man must have settled down and had his own family by now. So it's only a theory until proven true. Itachi responded, but blinked in confusion when Naruto stood up. Where are you going? Naruto smiled. I promised Miko-ka-chan I'd go with her to the market after my talk with Nagato, but I had to see you guys first before I head off to go shopping. Who knows how long it would take. Shopping? Sai shook his head, chuckling. You really are a girl, aren't you, Dickless? The young artist stated, unaware of the dark aura that suddenly filled the room. Sai, did I just hear you call Naru-chan Dickless? A cold voice cooed as the quartet turned and gulped upon seeing the newcomer. Well, shaking his head, Sai quickly denied saying any such words, though he knew it was futile to lie to the woman standing behind Itachi. Of course not. I would never call Naruto such a vulgar thing. That's well and good, but I decided to bring all of you guys shopping with Kanan, Deidara, Naruto, Obito and I. Itachi furrowed his brow, inwardly pouting. He didn't want to go shopping, especially not with his mother, but he also knew better than to argue or she could make it worse. I'll go get ready. With that, Itachi left, shooting a baleful glare at Sai, blaming him for their predicament. Naruto flashed a grin at Sai before leaving the room to get ready as well. Ka-chan, will Sasori-san, Fugato, Shinii, and Naga-chan be coming as well? With a pleasant smile, Mikado nodded. They sure are. An hour later, find the group leaving the Ame Tower and walking towards the market district. Mikado had her arms looped through her husband's arms. Obito had his arm wrapped around his brother, stopping us from trying to run away. Konan held Nagato's hand. Deidara cuddles up against Sasori, with both arms wrapped around the older male's waist. Walking behind them was the younger boys. This is all your fault, Sai. Why did you have to tease Naruto? Hissed Itachi. I don't like going shopping, especially not with my mother. She's horrible when in the mood. We'll all be treated like pack mules now. Naruto giggled. Don't worry, Itachi. He tapped the older male's shoulder. I'll keep her attention while you slip away. The blonde smiled. The other males will probably follow your lead when I distract her. Itachi turned towards the blonde and hugged him. Thanks, Naruto. I really don't like going shopping with her. I have nightmares every time I think about it. The blonde nodded and skipped forward. Miko-ka-chan, why don't we go on ahead and leave these killjoys to CSTCH up with us later? Sides, you don't really want to listen to them whine, do you? Mikado hummed. You do have a point. The female Uchiha nodded her head and glanced at her husband to her son, then glanced towards her nephews. I guess you men can go off, but you better meet us at Izo's Bar and Grill in 2 hours, got it? Yes, dear. Fugaku nodded so quickly, Naruto was reminded of one of those bobbleheads, and was surprised. His head didn't fly off. Let's go. With those words, Itachi, Sai, Shisui, Nagato and Sasori ran off, leaving Mikado, Naruto, Shin, Obito, Konan and Deidara snickering at how fast they left. Shaking his head, Naruto glanced at his mother. Such cowards, Ka-san. Mikado nodded her head, wrapping an arm around Naruto's shoulder. Well, let's go shopping. Deidara and Konan cheered while Obito and Shin smiled, giving a nod of agreement. 2 hours later, Iso's Bar and Grill. Fugaku and the other 5 males who didn't go shopping arrived at the meeting place first and decided to reserve a booth or two for when the rest of the group arrived. As they entered the establishment, Itachi pointed towards 2 booths at the far end, beside a window that had a good view of the mountains. Pain-sama. Several voices rang out in greeting, causing the said male to nod his head and return the greeting with a polite smile as he slid into the seat beside Sai. The waitress wasted no time and approached the table. Brown hair shortened framed her face and eyes, the same shade. Clenched within her hands were 6 menus. Hello, my name's Amy, I'll be your waitress. She called, setting the menus on the table. I'll be back in a few minutes to take your order. About to leave, she halted when Shisui cleared his throat. Excuse me. Turning, she smiled, eyes gleaming. Yes. Motioning towards the booth beside them, he told the waitress that 6 more people were coming and that they would wait for their arrival before ordering. With a nod, Emi turned and left to retrieve 6 more menus for the other table. It was another 20 minutes before Mikado entered the shop with the other 5, each carrying several bags filled with stuff and laughing at some unknown joke. Before spotting their missing friends and headed in their direction, taking the book beside theirs. Did you have fun, dear? Fugaku questioned, an eyebrow raised. Mikado smiled and nodded her head. Oh yes, there were a lot of lovely outfits for sale and Naru-chan made such an adorable doll. I always loved dressing him up, you know, he's so beautiful. I wished we had a daughter, she sighed, wistfully. Shisui smiled, technically Oba-san, Naru-chan could be your daughter, after all, in the future he'll marry Itachi and he's too beautiful to be considered a male, so... He trailed off with a snicker while Mikoto's eyes sparkled in apparent glee at the prospect of having Naruto as a daughter-in-law even though the blonde was a male. That's true. The female Uchiha squealed, oh, I'm so happy that Naruto-chan will become part of the family. Wrapping her arms around the blonde who shot a glare towards Shisui that promised lots and lots of pain, but the older boy just smiled, shrugging the look off. Obito, taking pity on the younger boy, signaled for the waitress to come so they could order their lunch, which earned a smile of gratitude from Naruto as he was released from the death hold. The Kokei organization. Hideout, unknown location. Striding down the hall, a man with light blue hair and eyes the same shade came to a stop at a door. Raising his hands, he knocked on the surface and upon getting the permission to enter the room, he slid the door open and stepped inside, bowing his head to his leader. Master, we have some news to report about the young boy you wanted to know about. A man with red hair and golden eyes turned and stared at the kneeling male with an intense glare. Well, are you going to tell me who the kid is or not? Of course, master. The male hastily rose, holding out a folder. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto is a child genius from Kanagaku no Sato. Father is Konoha's Yellow Flash, also the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, while his mother is Uzumaki Kushina, Konoha's Red Hot Habanero. Born on October 10th. He's 8 years old, and a member of Konoha's Anbu force. The master's eyes went wide at that comment, but aside from that, nothing else showed of his surprise. A few months ago he was under the leadership of Uchiha Itachi, but supposedly the said Uchiha genius snapped and massacred his entire clan. Naruto was named the new captain to his squad, making him one of the youngest captain ever produced. Flicking strands of hair off his shoulder, the man flipped several pages. You're going to love this, master. The tone was undeniably sarcastic as he paused, glancing towards the redhead sitting on the windowsill. The master narrowed his eyes. Go on, he commanded. He's attending the academy. Teeth gritting, the master's eyes narrowed. Are you telling me, the boy who had been able to push me back is only an academy student, officially? The blue-haired male nodded his head. Yes, I see. Continue. Well, Naruto is a well-known Anbu member, going by the name Sesshomaru no Kyubi in the bingo book. Blue eyes stared at his leader with a frown. The nine-tailed killing perfection, also goes by another name as well, Kage no Kurohayu. The master nodded and waved his hand, silently commanding the man to continue. High report. The Shadow Panther isn't someone that should be messed with, especially considering the close connections he made with several high-ranking people. His close friendship with his former captain, Uchiha Itachi, otherwise known as Kyuoketsuki no Karasu, and despite his actions of killing off his clan, Itachi will come to protect Naruto should you choose to go after him now. Kage no Kurohayu, I've heard of that one. The master rose his eyebrow, but this Sesshomaru no Kyubi is new. Where did the name come from? The blue-haired male's eyebrow twitched, wondering if his master had heard anything he said after the nicknames, and decided it was better for HS health to not dwell on it. The people of Kiri gave him the name after he kicked you out of the Mizukage's body, my lord. He lowered his head at the harsh glare that was thrown his way. Apologies, my lord. Nine-tailed killing perfection. Golden eyes glittered a bit. I wonder if they are trying to compare this kid to the terror that is the nine-tailed fox. It's fitting. Yokoshima-sama, the blue-eyed male, paused. Don't you think it would be dangerous if Konoha's Hokage had the Kage no Kurohayu train the Kyubi Jinchuriki? I mean, why else would they let a Jounin-level shinobi into the academy with kids who wouldn't know the difference between a kunai and a shuriken? Yokoshima eyed his henchman with furrowed brows before realization dawned and he scowled. Gather the Yakunin and have them spy on Konoha. Golden eyes glittered malevolently. Tell them not to get caught. Akuhei nodded. What about Konoha no Kokushibayu and Konoha no Shayurai? Real names unknown. The only thing we know for sure is that they're not only close friends of Naruto but also his teammates. Lightning Strike of Konoha and Black Death of Konoha. Yokoshima nodded his head. Tora and Ryu, I nearly forgot about them. The redhead hummed, not as famous or well known as Naruto and Itachi. These two shouldn't be underestimated as well. After all, Tora is fast as lightning and can strike a person dead before they even knew what had happened, and Dragon has the ability to swarm his enemies with ink monsters, killing his foes in a river of black. Akuhei inclined his head. So, tell them not to get caught. Go. I want that brat gone before he has a chance to train that demon brat. Kyubi's host is to remain weak and easy to capture, do you understand? Yokoshima narrowed his eyes, while Akuhei gave a nod of his head. Kyubi will be mine. And with his power, along with all the other demons, no one will dare stand in my way." A harsh laughter erupted, filling the room with a cruel chill. "You can leave no Akuhe." "Yes, my lord." The blue-haired man turned and left his room. His blue eyes flashed black, and the light blue hair darkened to a gray color briefly, before they returned to their light blue shade. Suzuki, to be continued. Sesshomaru no Kyubi, the nine-tailed killing perfection. Kage no Kurohayu, Shadow Panther. Kyuketsuki no Karasu, blood-sucking crow. Yokoshima, wicked or evil. Akuhe, vice, abuse, evil. Yakunin, calamity, evil, misfortune. Kokushibayu, black death. Shayurai, lightning strike. Kurohayu, panther, Naruto Zanbumesk. Karasu, crow, Itachi Zanbumesk. Tora, tiger, Shin Zanbumesk. Ryu, dragon, Sai Zanbumesk, changed from raven. Shiniko. Naruto's brow twitched as he felt two pairs of eyes staring at him. This has been going on for several weeks already and it was starting to annoy him. If Shikamaru and Shino wanted to say something, he didn't understand why they didn't just come out and say it. "Sorwa nani desu ka?" he called out, finally erupting when once again they turned and stared at him. "You two have been acting strange since I returned. Is there something you want to know? You can ask, you know." Shikamaru and Shino shared a look before they nodded. "We'll talk after class, alright, Naruto? Shino and I have come across some news that we want to share with you. We were unsure if we should bring it up or not, but since you asked." Naruto nodded and took a seat. "Good." As soon as the agreement was met, Iruka entered the room and silenced the yelling going on with his infamous demon head jutsu before beginning class. Lunchtime find the three friends sitting beneath a tree outside with their bentos on their laps. "So, what is it that you want to talk to me about?" the blonde questioned, smoothing the kimono he wore. "You know you can tell me anything. You two are my best friends." Shikamaru and Shino shared a look before glancing at Naruto. "We know your secret, Naruto." Shikamaru furrowed his brows at the shock look Naruto threw at him. "Why didn't you tell Shino and I that you weren't a girl?" Naruto rose an eyebrow at that before he sighed and stretched his legs out a bit and shrugged. "The villagers don't really like me, you know, they actually really hate me because of something I had no control over." The blonde proceeded to tell them how he was born on October 10th to Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. On the same day the demon fox Kyubi appeared outside Konoha's walls. He explained how his mother had been the previous Jinchuriki of Kyubi and before her another Uzumaki who was in fact the Shodai's wife had been his holder. He told them how his father sacrificed not only his life but his son's as well in order to save the village that he loved by sealing the Kyubi within him. How upon finding out about the sealing the civilians and some of the shinobis alike had called for his death. Told them about growing up with his Anbu guards, joining the Anbu, the truth behind the Uchiha massacre and where he really was when he was gone. That's pretty much everything. And the reason I am dressed as a girl, well aside from being really feminine, I was trained by several kunoichis in their art, so. Shikamaru and Shino went through various emotions upon finding out what really happened to their blonde friend. They were disgusted by how the villagers treated him, still treated him in fact. How this Danzo person lied to the Hokage in order to get rid of the Uchiha clan. Upset by how hurt and pained Naruto had been when he spoke about killing the only people who had really gave a damn upon him. Ecstatic when they found out about some of his gifts and that one of them allowed him to bring back several Uchihas that he really cared about. Worried and a bit frightened when the blonde spoke about the war and what happened there. And finally they were pleased that Naruto trusted them enough to tell them everything when they only really wanted to know his reason for hiding his gender from them. "Naruto, since you're actually an Anbu member, could you?" Shino trailed off a bit, glancing at Shikamaru who blinked his eyes, knowing what the Aburame was going to ask even before the words were fully formed. "Train us." "I can only speak of myself, but I want to fight beside you. I don't like the thought of you going off and fighting by yourself when Shin-san and Sai-san can accompany you." Shikamaru gave a nod of his head, agreeing with what the silent male said. Glancing from one to the other, the blonde smiled and gave a nod of his head. "We need one more person to form a group, so I'll scout around for one that will be able to work with us. I'll bring this up to the Hokage, besides I know just how to help you train." Naruto smiled, blue eyes glittering. "And when Sai and Shin are able to join us, we'll be a team of 6, which will actually be a lot better than the 3 or 4. Both the Nara and Aburame looked pleased at that. "Anyone you had in mind to be the final member for your new team?" Shikamaru drawled, brown eyes sharp. Naruto nodded his head. "I've been watching him for a while. He's got the right stuff. Just needs guidance and a firm talking to, but his skills are quite advanced for someone who had no one to help train him. I'll approach him and see what he has to say on the matter." Blue eyes glanced at the two. "He has quite the attitude, but I'm sure we'll be able to cure him of it, be it the easy way or the hard way." Shikamaru and Shino shivered at the veiled threat. Naruto could be really scary when he wanted to be, and they had to wonder if that was part of kunoichi training, or just the kunoichi who trained their blonde friend. 3 months passed and the only thing that changed with the trio of friends was the sight of an older boy accompanying them when they weren't at class and the fact that they were wearing kimonos as well when they weren't training. When Naruto had told the Hokage about Shikamaru and Shino wanting to help him and that he knew another who could keep up with them, he was reluctant to let more kids join the Anbu forces, but with much persuasion the elderly leader finally relented and allowed the Naruto, Shin and Sai to train the 3 Naruto had in mind. So mornings before classes was spent running around the village where they usually met up with Guy, who they would try to avoid as often as possible so they wouldn't have to listen to his youth speeches and waterfall tears about youthful kids were these days for taking their training seriously. After their running they'd have a light training session before classes would start. During lunch they would meet up and discuss what sort of training they want to do, and after school they would meet up and then go to Naruto's house where he would allow them into the room where the time seal was placed and they trained for days which would only amount to mere minutes in the real world. The Sandaime was pleased by the progress they were making and decided to send them on a C-rank mission soon to see how the trio would do in a real situation. Accompanying Naruto with those two would be Sai and Shin. Of course, 3 seasoned Anbu member is more than enough for a simple C rank. Soon it should be a good first-time mission for those 3. The elderly leader nodded his head. You 3 are coming along well. I wouldn't be surprised if Sandaime-sama decides to send us on a mission soon so the 3 of you can get field experience as well. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow. You really think he'd sent the 3 of us on a mission outside the village so soon? It's only been 90 days since we began training. Is that long enough to be sent out a mission? Naruto raised an eyebrow. 90 days to everyone else maybe, but you've seemed to have forgotten that while training within my sealed room you've been training for years already, so yes, I believe you're ready for a low-ranking mission. Sarutobi-sama will most likely only give us an escort mission or will have us deliver something. Sharing a look, the 3 didn't know whether to be excited or not at the prospects of actually going on a real mission. Seeing their apprehension, the blonde was quick to pacify them, telling them if they weren't ready then he will tell the Sandaime so. He didn't want to rush them into something they weren't emotionally ready for, though physically he believed in their prowess. Well, if you, Sai and Shin are with us, then I guess everything will be fine, right? Besides I think it would be fun to test our everything we learned on a real mission. Naruto smiled at Neji and nodded his head. I'll take point with Sai and Shin behind the 3 of you, while you'll remain in the middle. The blonde brushed his hair off his shoulder with a flick of his wrist. The first mission is always nerve-wracking but the ones that follow are much better. He flashed the trio a smile. Trust me, I won't let anything happen to you guys. Neji, Shikamaru and Shino nodded their heads. They already knew that without the blonde saying anything. We know that Naruto, Neji whispered, how about we train the rest of this month and then you can request a mission next month. At that Shika and Shino gave their agreement and Naruto smiled, pleased, before telling them they had to hurry or they'd be late for class. In Amiga with the Akatsuki members, Orochimaru snickered as he placed his report down and faced the group in front of him. Kabuto is giving Koku half-truths and the leader is sucking it up like a dehydrated man to water. Koku knows Naruto is the person at Kiri, that he's a child genius, his nicknames, everything, but he doesn't know that Naruto and the QB container is one and the same. He thinks they are 2 different people. The snake summoner grinned. So he'll be trying to capture Naruto but at the same time trying to avoid him or have him stay away from the QB holder. Kabuto is doing a good job, make sure he doesn't release anything but those half-truths. We don't need Koku finding out Naruto is the one they want. The snake summoner gave a nod of his head, with Koku knowing the identity of Naruto but not knowing the name or how the QB vessel looks like. They would be trying their hardest to stay out of sight of Naruto and by doing so they'll miss their target as well. Orochimaru chuckled, crossing his arms. Kabuto wouldn't let harm befall Naruto. I observed the both of them together. When Kabuto and Naruto are here together that is, it's hard to pinpoint just what Kabuto feels towards the blonde. He either has a crush on the younger boy or it's a platonic love. Itachi's eyebrow twitched. For the safety of your companion, he better only feel a brotherly love for Naruto. The members laughed at that, but went silent as Pain gave a nod. They knew not to cross the leader when he went into overprotective family mode. It's not pretty. Besides Naruto is only 8. Too young for any such feelings. Itachi's right and if anyone thinks about touching him, you will regret it. Pain glared at them, causing several of the other members to shiver while Orochimaru chuckled in amusement, waving his hands in the air. Anyways, continue with your report. Orochimaru grinned. Kabuto mentioned something about their leader sending one of his best team to spy on Naruto, the Yakunin. He wants him taken out before he has a chance to train, well himself. The white snake chuckled a bit, before becoming serious once more. Itachi should send a missive to warn Naruto to keep himself and his teammates hidden until Kabuto tells me that the Yakunin has retreated. Itachi frowned, nodding, "I will do that as soon as I leave." The Uchiha heir stated, not liking what was going on, maybe the Hokage could send them away for a while. Shisui shrugged, most likely place would be Suna since they have a truce, however fragile it may seem, they're still allies. Itachi's best friend stated, crossing his arms. He didn't like the fact that people were targeting his crush-comb little brother. Perhaps we could henge, sneak into Konoha and hang around just to make sure nothing happens to him. That sounds good. Itachi, you, Shisui and Obito will go. Your Sharingan will come in handy for this, especially since you're able to hypnotize anyone who looks into it. Tell Naruto what's going on and then stay with him for the duration of your stay there. The mentioned Uchihas nodded their heads as the meeting continued. Alright, I believe we've talked about everything we need to. Itachi, write to Naruto and tell him what's going on. The three of you might be staying there for years, you know, and if that's the case then I want monthly reports on your progress and what's been going on, understand? Again the Uchihas nodded their heads. Alright, dismissed. Suzuki, to be continued. Sorry for the long wait. Next chapter will be the academy graduation, and when certain people make an appearance that Naruto and the others will know, I'll explain how they met and all that. Shika, Shino and Neji are Hijin to low Chunin in skill, thanks to the Kuinhyu Kitsufuin room where they've been training, on and off, for the past 3 months. Thanks to all who reviewed. This chapter is on the boring side, but next chapter will be better. Shiniko, Jinan examine team placements. Naruto, dressed in a pair of black hakama, a icy blue shiitake, a black kosoden over that was a ankle-length wide haori with flames licking at his heels. It resembled the coat the Ondaime wore, and covering his feet were black ankle boots. Golden blonde hair was loose and fell across his shoulder, trailing down a slender back to rest at his waist. On either side of his head wide hairpins were clipped, more for decorated purposes than to actually hold any of his hair back. Murmurs and whispered taunts followed the beautiful boy as he made his way past the marketplace heading towards the academy. Blue eyes rolled at what some of the villagers were calling him. Really, after all these years you'd think they'll get better names to call him. 3 other males arrived shortly after, each wearing their own variation of the outfit Naruto was wearing. The only difference was the colors. For Shino, he wore a metallic gray hakama with white shiitake, a gray kosoden and a black high-collared haori, though he still wore his black shades. Shikamaru wore a pair of dark green hakama with a light green shiitake and dark green kosoden and a black haori. He kept his hair in his usual pineapple hairdo, and as for Neji, he wore white hakama, a beige shiitake, a white kosoden and a white haori. Tied across his forehead was a Konoha head protector that he had been gifted with the year before, and covering their feet was the same type of boots as Naruto. I'll see you guys after the exams. Neji called out, waving goodbye to the 3 as he went off to train. And good luck even though you don't need it. Naruto smiled and returned the wave cheerfully while Shikamaru grunted and Shino nodded his head. Neji chuckled at them before turning down another path as the trio continued towards the academy. As the trio of friends entered the room, they took their usual seats in the back row, middle aisle, and they were soon joined by Kuji, Kiba, Ino, and Hinata. Hey, what's up? The Inuzuka heir called, flashing a smile towards Naruto, who inwardly rolled his eyes. He couldn't wait to see his expression upon finding out his real gender. It was sure to be a riot. Then again, Naruto saw the looks the dog boy would often give Shino and guessed that Kiba was bi and couldn't decide between male or female. Oh well, he was still young. We're doing alright, and you guys? Naruto answered, offering a polite smile causing Ino and Hinata to blush, telling them they were doing alright. The same answer came from Kiba and Kuji as well. That's good. I hope we do well on the test. Shikamaru rolled his eyes. You're smart, you'll do fine. The Naru replied, lying his head on the desk. Waiting is so troublesome. Naruto shook his head and muttered something about, you think everything is troublesome, which caused the Nara heir to turn his attention towards Naruto. You're troublesome as well. Alright class, everyone sit down. The excited chatter died down as everyone took their seat. As you know, today is the graduation exam, so I want to wish all of you good luck. He spoke out as Mizuki began handing out the test papers. You will have an hour to do it, and you can start as soon as everyone has a test and not a moment sooner. So leave those tests flipped over until I say otherwise. Now, the test is broken into 4 parts. The first is the written half, the second will test how accurately you can hit a target with either a kunai, shuriken or senbons, the third will be a taijutsu matchup, and the last will test how well you can do the 3 academy jutsu. For extra credit you can even do an extra jutsu of your choice. At the end, we'll announce the rookie of the year and his counterpart. When everyone had their test, Iruka told them they could begin. Naruto flipped his desk over and scanned the paper with a frown. Blue eyes narrowed and he turned to glare at Mizuki, who was smirking in his direction. Shikamaru and Shino glanced at their friend worried before turning their attention towards his test with identical frowns. That looks like a test for the higher-ups. Most of the Jounins wouldn't even be able to answer that. You should tell Iruka about it. The Nara whispered. The blonde lowered his head. I know these answers just fine. Naruto replied, I'd love to see the look on Mizuki's face when he discovers his plan failed. With a soft chuckle Naruto began filling in his answers while Shikamaru and Shino looked amused. An hour later, Iruka called time and everyone who was still working on their test placed their pencil down and faced Iruka, Mizuki and an unknown male who just entered the room. Class, this is Namiyashi Raito. His Tokubetsu Jounin and B has volunteered to grade your written test while we go outside to finish the rest of your exam. Iruka told the class to stand up and follow him and Mizuki to the training grounds. With Raito, the Jounin watched as the class left before he began gathering the test and taking them towards the teacher's desk and began grading the test. He couldn't believe how much these kids couldn't even answer simple questions. For example, name the 5 great shinobi countries, where each is located and what title the Kage who rules the village is addressed by. Shaking his head, the Jounin flipped over the paper he just finished and sighed when he saw it was the last of the stack. Scanning the paper, he froze in shock and stared at the paper. What? He scanned the paper. Question 1, the formula H, T, equals minus 16T2 plus 32T plus 80 gives the height H above ground, in feet, of a kunai thrown, at D equals 0, straight upward from the top of an 80-feet building. A. What is the highest point reached by the kunai? B. How long does it take the kunai to reach its highest point? C. After how many seconds does the kunai hit the ground? D. For how many seconds is the height of the kunai higher than 90 feet? Answer. A. H equals minus 16, 1, 2 plus 32, 1, plus 80. Then the highest point the kunai will reach will be 96 feet. B. The kunai will reach its highest point in 1 second. C. It will take 3.5 seconds for the kunai to hit the ground. D. The kunai is higher than 90 feet for 0.4 seconds to about 1.6 seconds. With a surprise sound, Raito jumped to his feet and vanished from the room in a swirl of leaves and reappeared seconds later in front of the Hokage. Sandaime-sama, I need you to look at something. Raito called out, holding the paper out. This is Uzumaki Naruto's written test. The Hokage took the paper while behind him Dragon and Tiger shared a look before staring at the paper from over their leader's shoulder, wondering what would be so wrong with his test. They smiled at seeing the answers. He got a perfect, so they saw nothing wrong with it. Sarutobi frowned in displeasure, knowing why Raito had shown him the test. He glanced at the Jounin. Naruto got all of these questions right. And seeing as this is a Chunin/Jounin test, give him full marks. The Hokage bit the end of his pipe. Go and inform Iruka about this and let him know that Naruto is given extra points for the mix-up. Raito nodded and disappeared, to appear back into the office, giving Naruto full marks. Putting the papers together, the Jounin placed them neatly in a stack at the corner before making his way to the field. Naruto and friends. How did you do? Shikamaru asked as they left the room. Brown eyes watched as Kiba, Kuji and the 2 girls bounced forward to follow behind Iruka, chatting about who knows what while he and Shino walked on either side of Naruto. You think you did alright? Naruto nodded his head. Yeah, it was pretty simple, though it did take some major thinking on my end. I think I did alright though. I never had to take the written test to excel in ranks. Hell, officially I'm not even a Jonin even though I'm an Anbu captain, so taking the test was a way to prove I do deserve my rank as Anbu, for it would be really disgraceful had I failed. Shino shook his head. Not really. Written exams don't really matter as a shinobi. I wonder why we even have it. The Aburame crossed his arms. How will knowing the past Hokages or anything else resembling that help us in a fight against the enemy unless we wish to bore them to death with a history lesson? The trio reached the fields just in time to hear the ending of Iruka's speech. You have to hit the target 20 times. You can have your pick, either kunai, shuriken or senbon as I stated before. Now let's begin, shall we? Iruka smiled at the class and glanced at his clipboard. Now will Aburame Shino please step forward, you're up first. Wishing their friend good luck, the group stepped back to stand beside a tree as they watched Shino pick up 10 kunai and toss them at the target and nodded when his first batch hit 8/10. For the second batch he grabbed 10 shurikens and threw them. 9/10. Good job Shino, you got 17/20. Iruka praised with a smile as he continued reading names of the list. Next up was Akimichi Kuji, who scored a total of 16. Sakura was called after several others and she got a score of 10. Hinata scored a 15. When Kiba's name was called, he ran up grabbing 10 kunai and 10 shurikens and hit an overall score of 17. Shikamaru went up complaining about everything being troublesome and settled for throwing 10 kunai and shuriken and scored 17 as well. Sasuke walked up with a superior smirk, grabbed his 10 kunai and shuriken and hit a score of 19 amongst the shrieking and squealing of his fangirls. "Beat that Dobi," Sasuke stated coolly, walking past Naruto, who rolled his eyes at the Uchiha. He couldn't stand the boy's holier-than-thou attitude. It got on his nerves, and more than once he wanted to say screw it all and punch the boy. He was sure Mikoto, Fugaku and Itachi would understand when he told them the reason he decided to beat the younger Uchiha. Iruka looked up and smiled at his favorite student. "Naruto, your turn." Nodding, the blonde walked towards the target, ignoring Kiba's wolf whistle, and grabbed 6 kunais and 6 shurikens and threw them at the target, each hitting dead center. For his last 8 he grabbed 8 senbons, which caused everyone to blink and stare at the blonde, for no one else had tried to throw senbons, not even Sasuke. Turning towards the dummy set up beside the target, Naruto let the senbons fly. Head, heart, jugular vein, lungs, liver, spine, kidneys and the clavicle vein. "What the hell were you aiming at, Narubaka?" Sakura screeched. Naruto turned and blinked at the girl. "I hit the 8 vital points which will cause instant death, you pink-headed banshee bitch." The blonde retorted, turning away and heading back towards his friends. Yamanaka Ino was the last one called out to hit, and like the others she chose 10 kunai and shuriken and hit 15 out of the 20, much to her happiness as she stuck her tongue out at the fuming bubble-gum-haired female, who scowled in return. "Okay, good job everyone. The next thing we'll be working on is taijutsu. The names will be called out randomly." Iruka called, motioning to Mizuki, who held out a bowl to the kind-hearted brunette. "Let's see." Reaching into the bowl, Iruka drew out 2 names. "First up is Aburame Shino and Amano Wakane. Step forward and everyone else back up." The 2 said people walked forward and got into position, and upon Iruka starting the match, the 2 attacked. Naruto glanced to the side and elbowed Shikamaru when he spotted Raito walking towards Iruka. "Do you think I would be in trouble or something?" The blonde slanted a look at his genius friend, who was shaking his head. "Nope. I don't see why you would be." The lazy nin replied to his friend's question while glancing at the jounin who was assigned to grade the papers. "I wonder if he's one of those people who hates Naruto because of his burden and didn't even bother to look at his test. If so, I'll bring the matter up with Iruka." The blonde gave a nod of his head and turned his attention back towards the match, if you can call it that. Akane was yelling and telling Shino to stand still so she can hit him while the bug tamer dodged the wild swipes. Getting tired of the senseless fight, Shino got behind the auburn-haired female and hit a pressure point in the back of her neck, knocking the girl out. Aburame Shino wins this one. Next up is Homura Daisuke vs Inuzuka Kiba. "Come up and begin when ready." Iruka called out. Mizuki watched them. The brunette addressed his friend before walking towards Raito. "Is everything okay, Raito-san?" Nodding his head, Raito glanced towards the blonde boy who was sitting in between the Nara and Aburame heirs. He had seen the look that the unmotivated shinobi had given upon seeing him and knew what the boy was thinking. Most likely wondering if he was like most of the people when it came to the Jinchuriki. "It's about Uzumaki Naruto's test." The Scar Jounin explained, who gave out the test. Frowning, Iruka told him that Mizuki handed out the test while he was explaining what the class was to expect during the exams. "Why? Is something wrong? Naruto is smart and I know he'd be able to answer those questions with no problem." The Chunin bit his bottom lip, worried. "I know that, Iruka-san, and after grading his test, I am more than sure that Naruto would be able to do a simple Shinigami examination. No, the problem is that Mizuki gave the blonde a test made for Chunins and Jounins that even they would have some trouble answering. He got every question right at that. The Hokage said that Naruto is to be given extra points." Iruka smiled and nodded his head and made a mark beside Naruto's name. "Did anyone else do exceptionally well on the test?" "Nara Shikamaru and Aburame Shino." Raito answered, nodding his head towards the said boys. "Uchiha Sasuke and Yamanaka Ino did fairly well, with Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, Akimichi Kuji and Haruno Sakura doing a little less than those 2. Iruka nodded his head. "I see, thank you." Giving the Chunin a nod of his head, Raito vanished in a swirl of leaves as Iruka headed back to Mizuki, hiding a glare as he looked at his friend. "So how far along are we?" "We have the last fight going on now, Uzumaki Naruto vs Uchiha Sasuke." A cruel smirk graced the gray-haired male's face, which didn't escape Hiraka's eyes, who glared at his former friend before he shrugged. He knew better than anyone else about the blonde's prowess, and he can easily defend himself against the Uchiha even while holding back 60% of his power. Naruto stood in front of the smirking Uchiha with a bored look painted on his face. "You're going down this time, Dobe. I won't lose to you, after all you're just a girl while I'm an elite. An Uchiha. The best in the village." The duck butt puffed out his chest. Naruto hid a giggle as he turned to face the so-called last Uchiha. "You resemble a rooster more than ever." Naruto cut in, "Should I expect you to start clucking soon?" Snickers and laughter were heard after the blonde made his statement while the fangirls yelled insults at him. Sasuke's face grew red and he dashed forward. Elsewhere, after summoning all the would-be senseis, Sai, Dragon, and Shin, Tiger, was dismissed by the Hokage. Vanishing from the tower, they appeared on a branch, in a tree near the academy training ground, just in time to watch the first of the taijutsu match. Some of these kids are good, but then again it's to be expected seeing as most of them belong to a clan, Shin murmured. If the Akimichi works on his speed and reaction time, he could become quite the opponent. As expected, Shino and Shika did well in their fights. The Inuzuka should learn patience instead of just rushing into battle bullheaded like that. Yamanaka needs to polish up on her technique, while the Hyuga work on her confidence, and don't get me started with the civilians. The rest of the match was watched in silence until the names Uzumaki, Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke were heard. Finally, I want to see how well our little blonde friend will do. Shin bore a smile under the mask which faded gradually the moment the Uchiha had opened his mouth. His hand twitched, wanting nothing more than to draw a kunai and stab that overconfident idiot. Wow, I wonder how his brother would react upon hearing those words, Sai murmured. He'd be appalled for sure and would want nothing more than to pound the arrogance right out of the boy. He added, while Shin nodded his head in agreement. Naruto and Sasuke. Shaking his head, Naruto dodged Sasuke's rush and ducked the kick while leaping away. Is all the so-called elite can do, for shame Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto taunted the older boy, with a playful smirk on his face which just served to piss the Uchiha off, and he charged once again, this time going for a sweeping kick before following up with a frontal assault consisting of punches, elbow jabs, kicking, and he even used his knees, but everything was blocked or dodged. Getting tired of Sasuke's attack, Naruto ducked beneath the kick and thrust his palm forward, hitting the dark-haired boy in the chest, sending him skidding back. "Come now Sasuke-kun, that can't be all you got," the fair-haired boy exclaimed, stressing the honorifics in a sarcastic drawl. "Show me what an Uchiha can do." Growling, Sasuke stood up and settled into a stance he saw his father and others of his clan use. The only one he didn't see use this stance was his brother. A scowl overtook his feature at the thought of that traitor before he focused on his opponent. He'd show that girl just who was alpha around here. With a careless shrug, the second son of the Uchiha head charged at Naruto with a burst of speed. Sasuke relentlessly attacked, never allowing the blonde time to counter or take the offensive, and with no other choice the Uzumaki defended. Ducking a punch, leaping backwards to avoid a sweeping kick, dodging a chest palm and back-flipping from a grab. Everyone just watched the fight silently, well, mostly anyways. The Sasuke fangirls were cheering quite loudly, while the rest of the class shot them annoyed looks. "Do you think she'll be alright?" Kiba questioned, ruffling Akamaru's fur. Sasuke's not giving her any time to attack back, and his style is pretty aggressive. It's a perfect attack to use on someone like Naruto, who is relatively smaller than most our age. She's even smaller than all the other girls. Shikamaru and Shino shared a look. They knew Naruto would come out on top after all. Naruto had experience in fighting against people who use this attack style a lot better than how Sasuke was currently using it. They had been privileged enough to have witnessed a match between Shisui and Obito against Naruto because Fugaku wanted the blonde to train against people who used fast aggressive techniques. That way he'd be ready for something like that. Though Sasuke's fast and this attack style is based on speed and power, he still has a long way to go before he even masters whatever this style is. Naruto on the other hand is faster than Sasuke, and she's flexible. She'll be able to dodge the attacks and wait for an opening before striking. Shika replied after a while, having to stop himself from actually saying he and his as opposed to she and her. Shino nodded his head, yes, like a cobra waiting for its prey to let its guard down before striking. The bug user stated while adjusting his black shades. Or perhaps a panther. He replied. The usage of that specific name was not lost on Shikamaru, and he coughed to hide the laughter that threatened to erupt. Yay! There's no way Naruto would lose, Kuji agreed with a smile as he offered the group some chips as they watched their friend. Ino cheered wildly for her fellow blonde, while Hinata smiled. Naruto watched as Sasuke charged at him again in another frontal assault. The fight has been dragging on for about 20 minutes already, but he didn't mind. As he backflipped away from a palm thrust, he saw a noticeable difference in the Uchiha's speed. He was slowing down, which meant he was getting tired, and it was now his turn to go on the offensive. Blocking a punch to the chest and twisting around a kick, Naruto grabbed the leg and brought his knee forward and slammed it into Sasuke's stomach, sending the boy skidding backwards. Not giving the other time to recover from the hit, the blonde was on him like bees to honey. After several more minutes of kicking the arrogant boys behind, Naruto pinned him down face first on the ground while Iruka called the match. Yells and screams of denial rang out loudly, causing everyone nearby to cringe at the sound. He cheated Iruka-sensei. One girl yelled, "No one can beat Sasuke-kun." Another followed until all the other fangirls began protesting Naruto's victory. That's the end, guys. If you enjoyed, then make sure to leave a comment. This is Chaos Shinobi signing off.